Hey guys, how are you all? Welcome to. So we are back with a brand new movie on what if Pervert Naruto forcefully satisfied Anko, but before we start, be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video. Now let's begin the story. Looking back, it was a grand goal and an even grander goal. The complete and total unity of the world. While the people of the world, even my own family, thought my goal was that of a conqueror. A cruel and heartless monster with no love for anyone but myself. That was the farthest from the truth. In truth, I loved my people dearly. The day I saw my dear uncle Iroh after his son's death was a nightmare. Yet I had to maintain my cruel mask. I had to be the cold future Fire Lord my father wanted. If my plan was to work, if I was to end the war swiftly and with as little bloodshed as possible. The greatest thorn in my plan was not my brother Zuko or the nations that somehow had fought for 100 years. No, it was a 12-year-old child and his 3 friends. The Avatar, last known member of the Air Nomads, had returned out of the blue. In his travels he had ruined every plan I had created. Yet none was more ruined than my takeover of the Fire Nation. Unlike what others would tell you, I never planned to destroy the other nations. Like my beloved Fire Nation, they had skills that the Fire Nation lacked. The Water Tribe's ice bending to preserve food. The Earth Bender's ability to enrich the soil for crops. That was why I took the Dai Li on as my personal guard. For their skills rivaled Ant Bender, short of myself and the Avatar. Under one banner free of war, the world would truly flourish and prosper. A world where war would become a thing of the past. When I had first learned of my father's plan to burn all of the Earth Kingdom along with our own settlements to ash. With the power of Sozin's comet, I had started my plan. To take him down and become the new Fire Lord. Yet I needed both supporters and manpower. Thus when I was ordered to track down the Avatar and my traitor brother, it was a blessing in disguise. It was then I gathered my only true friends, my entirely. The only ones who had ever seen a glimpse of the real me. Traveling the world, we encountered many militia groups, as well as tales of the Avatar's deeds. In time I forged secrets pacts with powerful warriors. At the same time facing my prey. The times they escaped, they thought they had done so on their own skills. How funny it would be if they learned I had allowed them to escape to further my goals. The first true leap in my goals came in facing the Kyoshi warriors. When I had first met them, I was tracking the Avatar's flying bison. Only to find to my dismay a group of warriors 700 miles from their island. With the aid of Mai and Tylee, they were swiftly defeated. With their leader, a woman named Suki, the only true challenge. Meeting with them alone while my 2 partners secured the area. I gave them the chance to join me in overthrowing my father. All but their leader joined me. It pained me to send her to the burning lake. While her fellow warriors helped us infiltrate the legendary Earth Kingdom capital. Inside I found the keys to my victory in 2 things. The eclipse that would render fire benders powerless. As well as the Dai Li secret agents. With their skills and my tactics, the city fell with only a fight. A showdown with the Avatar and his group beneath the city was the final nail in the Earth Kingdom's coffin. One lightning strike was all it took to fell the Avatar. Only for him to escape with his Water Tribe friends. Yet my goal was within my grasp. The day of the eclipse, it was all going so smoothly. Father had sealed himself deep within a bunker at the heart of an active volcano. My agents attacked in one fell swoop. Yet there was one thing that I didn't count on. The betrayal of my friends and the meddling Avatar fighting to protect my father, no less. In the span of 5 minutes my plans had been ruined. Only 3 Kyoshi and 1 Dai Li survived. The rest covered my escape. No less than a month later the Earth Kingdom burned to ash. While the world was thrown into chaos, I knew that I had to do something. For the Avatar was clearly not the one for the job. In my youth I had found a hidden chamber in the Fire Temple. One not opened since the first Avatar. Inside it showed the history of how the Avatar was created. To my shock, I had found a ritual to grant me the Avatar's powers. As well as have all my descendants have the power as well. The ritual required powerful benders of the 3 other elements. My choices for water and earth were obvious. I captured the Water Tribe maiden and Earth Kingdom noble that followed the Avatar. Yet the Airbender had been a challenge. My first choice was the Avatar himself. Yet I found an Airbender tribe hidden in the Fire Nations, no less. It was easy to capture their best bender for the cause. The ritual was complex, requiring the summoning of elemental spirits and absorbing the bending skills of the sacrifices. They would live but never bend again. All was going to plan, yet I should have known better. Just when I was about to become the new Avatar and heal the world, that insolent Airbender ruined my plans again. I had absorbed the essence from the 3 and all was needed was to summon the Fire Spirit. To complete the ritual and become the new Avatar. Just as the fire spirit and nine-tailed fox appeared, so did the avatar. Bursting into the temple, he destroyed the array that held the beast at bay. With a booming howl, the fox was unleashed. The last thing I saw of my world was the maw of the fox as it crashed down on me. What followed was a series of flashes and blurs, as rage was all I could feel and sense. I saw many things, from a priest with odd ripple-like eyes, to a man who could create whole forest with movements of his hands alone. Yet the last thing I saw before I returned to awareness was a man I have sworn to hunt down and kill. A man with spiky black hair and an orange spiraling mask, revealing only his right eye. An odd red eye that seemed to control me like a puppet, as well as facing a golden-haired man on a toad larger than some buildings. The very last thing I did before regaining my senses was reaching out for the masked man. To this day I don't know what it was. A remnant of the power ritual, an act of God maybe. But I somehow took the power within the man's eyes, before once more my world was turned to blackness. Not long after, my mind returned to its senses, as I recalled what had happened to me. The golden-haired man had sealed me away into an infant boy. For 5 years I watched the child's life through his eyes, as if they were my own. Not a single day went by I didn't cry for hours on end. Though the Fire Nation was at war, we had rules for that war. The harming of children was by far forbidden. Yet what the villagers did to this poor child was unspeakable. The horrors were beyond any I had ever seen. Yet to my awe, the child would get back up and keep fighting. The child held a strength worthy of kings. It was without hesitation that I made my choice, to help the child achieve his goals. My power would be his own. My name is Princess Azula of the Fire Nation, and I am the nine-tailed fox. There, hoped you all liked that prologue. Now, as always, review. Now Naruto is going to have 3 girls in this FIC. While you all get to choose from the following girls: Azula Shion, Kin Ino Tenten, Hinata Tamari, Anko Kurenai, or Yugito. In his small, almost closet-sized room at the Leaf Orphanage, 5-year-old Naruto Uzumaki was no stranger to pain. Whether physical or emotional, he knew pain. When the parents at the park snatched their children away when all he wanted was a friend, to when all he would get were the scraps not worthy of animals for food. Thus he had learned swiftly where to find food in other places, while he was forced to wear clothes that were nothing short of rags. The only time he was treated like a human being was when the third Hokage came to visit, though in his heart he suspected there was a reason for that. With only a dirty old sheet to stay warm, Naruto fought the hunger down as he tried to find sleep. For it was only in sleep that he knew peace. Only in sleep that he forgot the loneliness, as his dreams would be of a world not his own, where people wielded the elements with wonders he had never imagined. Yet tonight would be the first step in his road to greatness. For 5 years Azula was forced to watch a child go through hell she wouldn't wish on even her father. For 5 years she had tried to find some way to help the boy. She would spend weeks doing nothing but staring at the seal that bound her, trying to find some flaw, some tiny little crack she could exploit. Yet to her horror there was none. While it enraged her to no end, she had to give the crafter of the seal his well-earned credit, for she had no doubt the seal couldn't have been broken by all spirits in the universe. Then her salvation came in the form of her own ancestor, the last avatar before the meddling child avatar Roku, her great-grandfather. 13 minutes ago, Naruto's mindscape. It had been another tortuous day for Azula. She had watched as her Naruto had defended a pink-haired girl from some bullies. Just when both thought he had found a potential friend, the girl smacked him and yelled out, "Stay away from me, freak." She had then walked away, leaving a near-crying Naruto. It had always pained her to see him bottle everything up. She knew one day he would explode. If something wasn't done soon, he would become the very monster they claim him to be. It was when a voice echoed through the chamber that she was broken from her musings. Deep and powerful, yet at the same time gentle and full of sorrow. The boy is truly a pariah. Whipping her head to behind the bars that held her, she instantly froze, for before her was a being that was beyond her in every way. The aged man was dressed in the robes of a Fire Nation noble, his long gray hair and beard flowing in a non-existent breeze, while his arms were folded, the hands hidden in the opposite sleeve. His eyes radiated an aura of pity and sadness. With the same booming voice, the man took a step closer and said, "It has been a long time, my grandchild. Though you have never seen me, I have been watching you for a long time. Ever since your dear mother joined us in the spirit world, you have gone far and tried to do so much, only to fail because of my reincarnation. But now is not the time to speak of the past but of the future." All the while Azula was speechless. The first person she could talk to in eons, and she had nothing to say. All she could do was ingrain everything he said into her memory. With a steely glance, Avatar Roku looked straight into her eyes. What he was about to say would forever change the world. Though you had good intentions, becoming an avatar, it was too little too late. Our world was thrown into too great of an unbalance to solve with merely an avatar. Rest assured, our world is well on its way to healing. While the current avatar from the Earth Kingdom has done far more than Aang ever did. But now a new threat has come to this world. Taking a moment to let her absorb the information, he continued. A dark group seeks to destroy this world by plunging it into eternal war. Only the power of the Avatar and his disciples can prevent this from happening, and it is thanks to you that it is possible. This had caused Azula to speak for the first time. Not some grand calculated speech, but a confused and simple. Me? Nodding, he then explained how she had sown the seeds for the world's salvation. The man who drove you to attack the village 5 years ago had a dark power. Known as the Sharingan, he had gained its ultimate form through the murder of his best friend and brother. With its powers, he was on the verge of bringing this world to war. Yet to control you, he needed to make a link. A link that proved to be his downfall. For when the Death God sealed you into Naruto, that link crossed over to him, taking away the one thing he holds most dear to him, while at the same time throwing his plans back decades. Time enough to save this world. By training a new avatar. It was then a sleeping Naruto appeared between the two. Wrapped in a thick warm blanket, the child was sound asleep, unaware of what he was about to be given. Looking at her, Roku said one final thing to her. Guide him, my child, and I promise you shall be rewarded. For he is the new avatar, master of all 4 elements and link between the spirits and living plane of this world. With that he faded from view. While 5 tendrils of energy left her body. Each one the color of an element. With the 5th one pure white. The strands of energy entered the sleeping Naruto, bestowing upon him the powers of an avatar. With teary eyes, Azula looked down at her charge. She knew the times ahead would be trying. The battles greater than any she had ever fought. She knew that if anybody could save the world, it was him. She only hoped she could guide him to wield his new gifts for good. When her own past was one of pain and bloodshed. As this went on, hidden deep beneath the earth in his main hideout, the once great Madara Uchiha howled in pain. The after effects of his greatest failure had caused his eyes to decay in his very sockets. Only when his now dead servant had carved then rotting orbs from his head was he spared death's cold grasp. Yet now he was faced with the one thing he feared more than death: darkness. Not a second passed where he didn't curse the 4th sealing jutsu. Not a second passed where he schemed to regain his eyes. Yet there was one thing he did gain from his failure. As the plans to regain the power of the Sharingan became more fixed and smooth, Madara took in a deep breath. As he exhaled, flames came out instead of air. As he did a simple fire-bending exercise called the breath of fire. His rage then turned into an insane grin as he thought of the whole world burning around him, unaware that a child would one day be his downfall. Well, there it is, chapter 2. I was going to make this one a lot longer, but felt it would be good to end it here. A nice chapter explaining just how he gets the powers and why. Rest assured, Madara is the main villain in this fic. Now please read and review. Also, if you think Shion or Hana would be good for the pairing, tell me. Also, if the girls should be benders, tell me, and what element they should bend. All across the elemental nations, hundreds of chakra wielders, not users, all felt it. A ripple in the very essence of the world itself. As if all the chakra in the world was an ocean. While a ripple of power ran through the earth. While those that simply used chakra like the common ninja. Those that truly wielded chakra could tell that something had arrived. In the land of demons, in the main temple, a young girl with long dirty blonde hair awoke. Her pale eyes had turned into a kaleidoscope as she saw a vision of the future. Of a battle that would decide the fate of the world. Unable to make anything clear out. The only thing she could tell for sure was one had long spiky blonde hair. Who wielded the elements themselves. Just as she was about to see the outcome of the battle, it ended. Drained, the young Shion passed out. For the first time in his life, Naruto was completely relaxed. Ever since he had waken up that morning, it was as if a great weight he never knew he had was somehow lifted off his shoulders. While the hole in his heart was now smaller. As if someone had entered his life that truly cared for him. Thus he didn't want it to end. Fearing what the matron would do if she saw him, he chose to spend the day walking through the woods, always finding peace amongst nature. As he was entering the forest, he never saw the weasel-masked Anbu follow him. Said Anbu was one of the boy's secret bodyguards, chosen by the head of the Anbu Black Ops himself, to protect Naruto should the villagers go too far. His codename was Weasel, his true name was Itachi Uchiha. Walking through the trees, the morning dew caused the forest to almost shine in the morning sun. While Naruto walked down a path only a handful now walked in decades, for it led to one of the few places he felt safe. After nearly an hour of walking, the small child finally reached his goal. Before him lay an abandoned training field. Once used by the Uchiha clan, it was now abandoned after the second Hokage moved them to the other side of the village. The field had a small lake and massive boulders, while small trees dotted the fair-sized field. Walking over to the lakeside, he sat down with a soft sigh. Staring at his reflection in the lake, he watched as the water rippled. For a moment he just stared at the water as a fish swam close only to swim away. A moment passed as his eyes glowed blue, as a vision entered his mind, while in the distance the Anbu looked on concerned. A woman standing under the moon, her arms moving with fluid grace as the water around her moved to her will. Until with one large sweep of her arms a giant tidal wave engulfed his vision. A man standing atop a rocky mountain. With fierce direct movements the very earth moved to his will, as pillars of earth rose up, only for him to kick the air, sending the earth clear off the mountain. A bald woman with a blue arrow on her head stood atop a cliff. With large sweeping movements the wind itself stirred, until with one giant sweep a gust of wind tore through the land. A man standing in a clearing, with softer, more centered movements drawing from his center. Flames erupted from his hands and feet, when at the end he let out a booming roar of flames. When the vision ended he stood up in a daze. Looking at the water he made several motions like in the vision. On pure instinct trying to push and pull the water with his hands. To his shock the water moved back and forth as he pushed and pulled with his hands. Until the rush was too much. Pulling harder than he meant caused a wave 10 feet high to crash over him. When the wave ended he was soaked, yet the thrill was too great. Trying to remember the vision he focused on the second person. He seemed to be rooted and solid, commanding the very earth itself. Taking a solid stance he looked at a nearby boulder 10 feet away. Having seen the motions too many times in his life, Naruto punched the air towards the boulder. As if hit by some unseen force the boulder was sent flying nearly 20 feet. With a smile he then stomped his right foot on the ground, causing a large mound of earth to rise up. Amazed that it worked he thought about the third person he saw. She seemed to be one with the wind, as if she had become detached from the world, becoming as free as the wind. Spinning on his heel Naruto then swung his hands towards the nearby tree line, right in the direction of his masked guardian. The Anbu had only a split second to jump to another tree before a gust of wind slammed into the trees, in many of them tearing the leaves clear off, while kicking up a dust cloud. Up in the trees the Anbu was in a state of shock. The sheer amount of chakra needed to perform such feats was beyond most genin. Yet this child had just done it with ease. From behind his mask his Sharingan was boring into the child, trying to see if it was the fox taking over, when to his shock there was nearly no trace of its chakra in his body. Only trace amounts in his navel, not even enough to be sensed without a fully mature Sharingan or mastered by a Kugan. Yet what the boy did next was beyond anything he could believe. Staring at his hands, Naruto's 5-year-old mind was in overdrive. Almost unable to believe what he had just done, he tried to concentrate on the final person in his vision. The man's movements had been more centered, as if he was drawing energy from his core then thrusting it outwards, while at the same time drawing energy from around himself. Taking a deep breath, Naruto took on another fighting pose. Sloppy and rough, it was clear he had never tried that stance before. His right hand was near his chest, while his left hand was leveled and stretched outwards. Taking a deep breath he thrusted his hand out, trying to send his energy through it. When his right hand was nearly fully extended, a fireball flew from his fist, only to dissipate over 6 feet. In his tree the Anbu was shocked beyond all logic. Everything he had believed about fire jutsus was no wrong. The one thing his clan excelled at was now at risk of becoming obsolete. Every fire jutsu he had learned involved breathing the fire out of their mouth. While there were fire chakra techniques, they only caused burns, never real flames. Yet what he had captured with his Sharingan could very well change the ninja world. He was so wrapped up in his thoughts he never saw Naruto leave, his hunger causing him to go find some food. Nearly 2 hours later Naruto was walking through the restaurant district. While the people glared at him and stayed away from him, he had grown used to it, hoping to find a place that was too busy to throw him out. While he snuck some person's food, he stopped as a smell he had never experienced reached his nose. Taking several deep whiffs his mouth began to water as he followed his nose. After several minutes he stopped in front of a new restaurant he had never seen before. What was once a ramen stand owned by the Ichiraku family, who left for a larger building. The sigh simply said the Sleepy Dragon.
Seeing no one inside yet, he cautiously made his way inside.
The back wall was one giant menu. Though he could barely read, he still couldn't recognize many of the dishes. So fixed on the menu, he never noticed an elderly man walk in from the back. Standing at just under 6 feet, the man was well into his 50s. With a large round belly, his hair was now gray. With a neatly trimmed beard. While his apron was messy, he held a warm smile as he looked down at the boy. While deep inside the seal, Azula was in a state of shock as she said to herself, "It can't be Uncle?" With a warm, gentle tone, the elderly man looked at Naruto without any hatred or malice.
"Hello there, little one. You're my first customer of the day."
To use to the angry glares and yelling, Naruto weakly said, "But I don't have any money." Without losing his warm smile, the man replied calmly, "Not to worry, child. We're having a special today. First customer eats free. Now what will you have?" He then motioned towards the giant board. Too hungry to care, he barely looked as he picked the first one he could read. "I'll have a cheeseburger." With a warm chuckle, the man replied, "Excellent choice. Take a seat and it'll be done in a few minutes." As he took a seat on a bar stool, the man looked out through the doorway at the boy.
His eyes scanning the child. In all his travels, he knew this child had it bad. The look in his eyes reminded him of another child he saw recently in the Sand Village. He could tell this was the child that the adults were talking about. Yet he knew this child was no demon. Food ready, he walked out. As he placed the food down, Naruto didn't care if it was poisoned. Having gone 2 days without food, he was getting desperate.
As he ate, he never noticed a 10-year-old girl enter, with dark purple hair in a topknot. While she was dressed in a fishnet shirt, along with Enbu-style pants, along with a bulky brown leather coat. Her gray eyes locked onto the old man as she grinned and loudly startling Naruto in the process. "Hey Uncle Iroh, how ya doin'?" With a chuckle, the man patted his belly and said warmly, "Just fine, Anko. So how was school today?" Hopping onto the stool next to Naruto, she pouted and said, "Lame, the teachers got mad just because someone put a paint bomb under their chairs." With a knowing smile, Iroh asked her calmly, "Did you?"
With a laugh, Anko shot her fist in the air and said, "Heck yeah, now I'll have a pizza and 2 orders of dango, please." With a chuckle, Iroh replied, "Right away. In the meantime, say hello to this fine boy." Her head whipped around to look at a nervous Naruto. With a smile, she said happily, "Hi there, I'm Anko, what's your name?" With a timid nod, Naruto carefully introduced himself. Fearing her reaction when she found out his name, Naruto. What happened next was something he never saw coming.
With a broad smile, Anko said with great enthusiasm, "Naruto, huh, not a bad name, and those whiskers make you look cute too. So you going to the academy next year?" With a short nod, he then replied, "Yep, I'm gonna be a ninja." Laughing, Anko said happily, "Best of luck with that. The teachers they got there right now can't tell their kunai from there." She was cut off as Iroh put her food down, the clanking of the plate stopping her from finishing her sentence. As she began to dig into the food, Iroh smiled and said, "It's always warms my heart to see people enjoying my cooking." Looking at Naruto, he then came up with a plan to help him. Waiting for Anko to finish, he then asked her calmly, "Anko, are you still looking for a roommate?" Looking up at him, she frowned and said, "Yep, and that cranky landlady is getting on my butt about it. Unless I find someone soon, I'm gonna lose my view." Grinning, he then looked at Naruto as he asked him, "And you kiddo, you live in the orphanage, right? I doubt they treat you right there, don't they?" All Naruto did was look down, saddened. That soon changed as Iroh clapped his hands together and say proudly, "Then it's settled. Naruto will move in with Anko. To pay the rent, he'll help me in the kitchen 3 days a week." The 2 children were shocked at his idea. Naruto for the slimmest chance of gaining a home bigger than a closet. Anko for the idea of saving the view she had come to love from her apartment. Looking at Naruto's shocked and fearful expression, she then looked up at Iroh and asked bluntly, "Will you teach him how to cook?" As he nodded his head, Anko cheered. Leaping at Naruto, she tackled him to the ground. At first he thought she was going to hurt him, only to be dazed as she hugged him and said with great energy, "Hello, new brother whose cooking I'm going to love." All Naruto could do was nothing. So deprived of large displays of affection, he had no idea what to do. Nearly an hour later, with Anko practically dragging him to an apartment complex at the edge of the village. The 2 had finally arrived at the apartment. The building was one of the taller buildings in the village. Its only superior was the Hokage Tower itself. With 6 stories, the building was one giant oval, with white walls along with a dark green roof, while large clear windows let in large amounts of sunlight, with each floor split into 4 apartments. The first 4 stories of the complex were reserved for ninja special jonin and above. while the top two were for anyone else who wanted to live there. This was due to the fact the former owner was a member of the civilian council, who in their arrogance thought themselves better than the ninja. With a large smile, Anko opened the door to her apartment, while Naruto was still nervous about going in. Thus he just stood in the doorway. Looking at him, she sighed and moved behind him. "We really gotta work on your confidence, little bro, now in you go." With that she pushed him inside, stopping as they entered the living room. Naruto was in awe as he looked around the apartment. The living room was spacious while large windows filled the room with sunlight. The furniture was clear, not cheap. At seeing his awe, Anko smiled and explained. "My clan used to big and famous until the last war. Now it's just me and my grandpa who sold everything and set me up here, because he's busy trying to find an old teammate of his or something like that. Anyway, your room's in there. Tomorrow we'll buy you everything you'll need." At that, Naruto was on the verge of tears. Unable to hold it in, he leapt at her and hugged her. Unprepared, they both fell down. Back at the Sleepy Dragon, Iroh had just finished the lunch rush, when a rather esteemed customer walked in. Sitting down, the man was ice cold as he said bluntly, "I see you met him earlier, Iroh. Couldn't help but meddle, could you?" Looking at the man, Iroh crossed his arms and said bluntly, "Oh, and having an Anbu Black Op on him nonstop isn't meddling." My old friend," the stranger grunted as he said with cold fury. "Not everyone could just wander the world learning how to make odd dishes. Someone had to stay and protect the village." With a small grin, Iroh's reply was calm and serene. "Well, if one was to point fingers, all you have to do is admit Naruto is their son and the village would be worshipping him right now. Or are you waiting till he's a timid, weak dog so he doesn't bite you?" Sarutobi. With a cold glare, the third Hokage said bluntly, "Just get me my usual." Chuckling, Iroh walked towards the back, victorious. "Whatever you say, cousin." As this went on in the training field, Naruto first used his bending. Itachi was looking over the field. In his mind, he was replaying everything he saw with his Sharingan. Able to see chakra itself, he could tell that he was used nothing but pure physical energy. For some odd reason, the less spiritual energy he used, the less draining it was for the boy. The Uchiha prodigy had even memorized the energy flow, how it seemed to come from both Naruto and the area around him. Taking several deep breaths, he then punched the air in front of him. To his dismay, only a tiny wisp of flame came out, only to be near instantly snuffed out. Not deterred, he didn't leave the field for 6 straight hours, until with a mighty roar his punch produced a fireball just as large as Naruto's. Exhausted, he slowly made his way home, unaware of the true feat he had accomplished. In his new bedroom, Naruto was nearly asleep. Anko had wished him pleasant dreams. Looking out the bedroom window, he saw the Hokage's faces. As sleep overtook him, he prayed that this was real, not some twisted joke. Appearing in his mindscape, Naruto was confused. Never before had he had a dream of a sewer. Looking around, he saw a gate held in place with a piece of paper with a kanji for seal on it. Scared, he was about to run away, only for a voice to stop him. Kinda gentle, it seemed to soothe him for reasons he couldn't understand. It was as if he had always known the voice. "I have been waiting for this moment, my dear Naruto." From the shadows of the cage emerged a young woman with long black hair. With a flawless face, she was dressed in red and black robes. With a saddened gaze, she said weakly, "I have so much to tell you." Second, the main reason the third was a cold bastard in the last chapter was for 3 reasons. First, most of his clan was killed in the fox attack. While he's a battle-hardened ninja, losing his whole family would take a while to get over. Second, the issue with how easy Iroh helped Naruto when he couldn't after 5 years of hard work. The last will be brought up in the chapter. Thirdly, a reason brought up by a thoughtful reader calling himself Omi. Why bending is such a major in the Naruto universe. Now ninjutsu is basically forcing the area around you to do something that isn't in its nature, such as the water dragon jutsu. Now bending, though, allows one to control the elements. They are not forcing it into unnatural states. While ninjutsu requires large amounts of energy for only a handful of attacks, a bender could go for hours in a fight when they're fully trained. Another reason is the time that a ninja wastes on hand signs. A bender is already sending a wave of destructive nature into their arrogant faces. There's no time delay or calling out jutsus. It's all swift and deadly, while at the same time restrained and peaceful. Not only that, but he asked if people could bend multiple elements. This will be a major no. While they may have main and secondary chakra natures, they will only have one bending element, due to it being a spiritual force, not a chakra-based power. He also stated some people having all 5 elements. Well, that is an extreme rarity. Case in point, when Kakashi fought Kakazu,
When that heart-stealing monster used just 3 powerful elemental jutsu, he nearly had a heart attack.
Pun so freakin' intended. Now let's get this chapter started. Naruto was in a mix of awe and confusion. There standing before him was a woman he had dreamed about for as long as he could remember. He had seen many of her travels. Many of the people she had covertly saved. While those dreams had been one of the very reasons he had the will to go on. Now that he was now in her presence, all he could do was stare in a daze. Only to be broken from it as she said gently, "Please Naruto, come closer." With shaky legs he walked into through the bars. Stopping as she dropped to her knees. Wrapping her arms around him, she held onto him tightly as she said softly, "I've been waiting for this moment." As she loosened the hug, she then looked him in the eyes. The confusion in them caused her to nearly cry. With a gentle voice as not to scare him. "There is so much to tell you and so little time. Please Naruto, sit down." With a rare show of complete trust, Naruto sat beside her as she began her tale. As she spoke, he could see in his mind what she was talking about, as if it was playing in front of him as it happened. Long ago in another world, 4 races learned to bend the elements of water, fire, earth and air to the will. These 4 at first were at peace, yet war soon threatened their world. To prevent this, an avatar was born, blessed with the power of all 4 elements. His job was to bring peace and balance to the world. When he died, he would be reborn to continue his work. Yet one day he vanished. What followed was 100 years of war, before he returned to a broken world. As he began to shake and tremble from the visions, Azula hugged him until he stopped. Waiting till he was ready, she continued. "As this happened, I tried to stop the war my own way. By uniting the world under one banner. So that war would never threaten my world again. Yet it was a fool's errand. The people just wouldn't submit under a firebender. But they would under an avatar. Thus I sought the power to unite the world forever. But the current avatar foiled my plans. In the chaos that followed, I was cursed. The curse turned me into what your people call the 9-tailed fox. Time blurred till I awakened. Sealed within a child. That child is you, my little Naruto." Shocked, he looked up at her as she looked away ashamed. The illusion around her wavered slightly, revealing a set of fox ears and 9 tails. Azula was ready for him to scream at her. To say that he hated her with his entire soul. What she wasn't ready for was for him to hug her. Then say gently, "It's not your fault." She then broke down then and there. With teary eyes she returned the hug and said, "Thank you Naruto, thank you so much." Several long moments passed before she composed herself. Sensing that their time was almost up, she said rushed, "Naruto, listen closely, this is important. You are the new avatar for this world. You can save it from war and pain. But you have to master the 4 elements. I know you can do it. But you have to learn to trust those around you. I know Anko and Iroh are good people." The energy then seemed to drain from her as she smiled and said, "Find someone skilled in the fighting arts. They can aid you in mastering the bending arts. Then teach what you learn to those worthy. Know that no matter what, I will be proud of you. No go, it's time to wake up." As he faded away, she passed out, returning into her fox form in the process. Appearing next to her avatar, Roku looked proudly at her. With an ethereal voice he said, "You have done well, child. That one meeting will set him on the path. Now for your reward." With a wave of his hand she was returned to normal. The curse of the fox removed forever. Looking at her he said solemnly, "Now you must wait till you regain your body, my dear." Looking into the deeper reaches of Naruto's mindscape, Roku had a serene look as he said to himself, "Now to get his familiar." As the first rays of the sun broke through his window, Naruto awoke to find himself in his new room. His trademark whiskers now gone. Looking at the Hokage's faces carved into the cliffside, Naruto let a single tear fall as he said to himself, hoping Azula would hear it, "Thank you, and I promise to be the greatest avatar ever." Little did he know it would be several long years before they could meet again. Several hours later, both Naruto and Anko were in the living room. At her insistence, the two were telling each other about themselves, while she planned on what he would need, from cloths to equipment. With each passing moment, Naruto began to trust her more and more, while a bond was beginning to form that would change the world. As the afternoon was about to begin, Naruto made his choice. With a slightly nervous voice he looked at her and said, "Anko, there's something I need to show you." With curious eyes she waited for him to tell her. Nearly a week later, word had spread throughout the clans that Naruto was now living with Anko. While most of the clans didn't care, there was one that would not have it. Her name was Sume Inuzuka, head of the Inuzuka clan and widow of Koga, while she was also known as a former teammate of the 4th Hokage. With a dark, sinister gaze, the matriarch of the Inuzuka clan made her way through the forest. In the past 5 years she had been one of the most outspoken on having Naruto killed. Yet every time she was shot down. Now he was under the protection of the Mitarashi clan. Any official attack on him was now an attack on the clan. This was something she would not allow. Thus her trip to a place she had not visited in 5 years. In the heart of the Inuzuka's compound was one of their darkest secrets. A prison built not to house people but animals. For their bonds with their hounds comes at a price. When a member of the clan dies, their hound slowly becomes feral and crazed. To the point it would kill any it saw. While growing to the size of a small horse. Due to the chaotic uncontrolled chakra that the loss of their partner created. Thus the prison was built to hold them. Deep beneath the earth and away from those they would hurt. For while they were savage and wild monsters, they were still the last links to their fallen clansmen.
The prison on the surface appeared to be a simple small hut. With a door 5 feet wide made of metal. Wood was applied to it to hide that fact. Seals were placed to allow only the elders and head of the clan could enter. Reaching the door, she placed her hand on the seamless door. A small burst of chakra was all that was needed to open the doorway, revealing a stairway deep into the earth. Without any hesitation she walked down the stairway. Nearly 6 full stories beneath the surface was the main prison chamber. Used for the common partners, the chamber was nearly 500 feet long. With the 2 walls lined with cages, each one housing a wild hound. For their comfort each cell was 30 by 30 feet. With the light feeding plants that gave each cell a forest-like appeal to it. While a feeder would bring prey in every other day to feed them. As she passed by, each cell had a pair of glowing crimson eyes. As they saw her pass, each one on a rare show of sanity were silent. For they knew that she would not hesitate to show them her wrath. Descending another level revealed the next set of cells. Reserved for the more powerful hounds with years of combat experience. The cells were barren. Save the blood splatter of their food. While the cell bars were twice as thick. With dozens of chakra surprising seals carved into every available surface. Simply passing through this level caused many of the less experienced Inuzuka to quit the entire ninja careers. Due to the sheer level of killing intent and rage drenching the air. Where others faltered, Sume marched on unaffected. Her own hatred and rage negating the hounds. It was the 3rd level that housed the worst of the worst. Built only to hold on prisoner. It had only been used once before. When the first head of the clan had died. It was only destiny that the child of that hound be its new tenant. The former partner of Koga Inuzuka, Fenrir. Said to be the strongest hound to ever grace the clan. The 3rd level was a single cell made to hold the beast. The chamber was nearly 100 feet in diameter. With the ceiling nearly 40 feet high. The chamber was nearly 20 stories beneath the surface. While on the wall opposite of the stairway was a tunnel 20 feet wide and 10 feet high. This was the secret tunnel used to bring the beast in. As well as the only way out for it. In the heart of the chamber lay Fenrir himself. Held down by massive chains many thicker than an adult's arm. The hound was one of the largest in the world. Rivaled only by the summon animals of the canine tribes. At nearly 6 feet tall at the shoulder. The hound was 20 feet long from the tip of its tail to its snout. Its fur was a dark gray with seals placed over its body. Some to enhance its abilities, others to control it. The claws were jet black and his eyes, though closed, glowed a blood red. Scars ran over its body. The chains held him down so secure. The beast could only open and close its eyes. As Sume entered the chamber, twin red orbs tore into her soul. The two seemed to simply glare at each other. Waiting to see which one would falter. With nearly half her chakra, Sume sent a burst of concentrated killing intent at Fenrir. A technique created by the Fourth himself in the last war. It snapped Fenrir enough for one small moment of lucidness. With a deep, almost insane voice, Fenrir said, confused, "Sume?" Walking up, Sume spoke in a way only one driven off the edge would speak. When they were willing to give everything just to get their revenge. "Yes, Fenrir, it's me, Sume. I know I haven't visited, but the time has come. The time to avenge Koga has arrived. The time to kill the fox has come." Reaching into her vest, she withdrew a scrap of Naruto's old shirt. Holding it to his nose, she watched as he took in several deep whiffs. Taking the scent of his prey to memory. Satisfied, she walked over to a seal carved on the floor. Stepping on it, she looked at him and said, "Happy hunting." A small burst of chakra into the seal released the chains from the floor. As Fenrir began to stand, regaining the use of muscles not used in 5 long years. Sume had used her speed to disappear back up the stairway. Far behind the Hokage monument, a waterfall flowed into a small river. Only a handful of people had ever seen the place. Its remoteness was one of the key factors for what was built behind the waterfall.
with a booming howl that traveled for miles. Fenrir shot through the falls. Blending into the trees, the hunt was on. The only thing on its mind was the kill. To find its prey and end him, no matter who or what got in his way. There, another chapter done. I know it's a filler, but I thought I explained things rather well. Though if anyone has any tips or suggestions, feel free to leave a review. Also, don't forget to vote on a girl for the harem. Now I need help deciding what his partner is going to be. So vote for what will save him in the next chapter. Karara from that show Inuyasha. Simply because the whole small cat transforming at will into supersized flying demon cat. As the sun was rising, many were already going about their business. While several shops were just opening the doors, a group appeared from the road leading to the village. A group of 6 men guarded their leader as they approached the village. Each was dressed in the heavy black robes belonging to the priests of the land of demons. Each one was skilled not just in the ninja arts but in the spiritual arts as well. For they were the warrior priests of the Order of Causes. Second only to their leader, the priestess Revan, who was said to rival the 4th Hokage in his prime. The very priestess who was now visiting the Hidden Leaf village, under the guard of her elite warriors. The cause of the visit was the pulse felt nearly a week ago. Her powers had allowed her to track the source down to the village. Now they were coming to determine if it was a threat. If so, her warriors would deal with it. Hidden under heavy brightly colored robes, the priestess gazed up towards the sky. Her emerald eyes narrowed as she said softly, "We must hurry. I fear something terrible is about to happen." With that, the group vanished in a blur of pure speed enhanced by chakra. In his private training field, Naruto was practicing his airbending. With several pointers from Anko, he had gained a feel for the winds. While Anko was in the academy, he trained to master his bending styles. Yet he was completely unaware on the threat just a few miles away. For over 60 years, the Uchiha clan was hailed as one of the best to ever live. Legendary for their Sharingan eye, said to see and cast some of the most powerful illusions in the world, while also granting them the ability to copy and steal the skills of others. Simply by watching them. Yet now they were down to half their highest numbers, whittled down from 2 wars as well as the 9 Tails attack. The once mighty clan was now down to only a mere 76 members, with only 42 in the active ninja roster. Yet on this day they were under attack from a foe that had no reason or cause to attack. Only blind rage and bloodlust. With a sickening crunch, Fenrir burst through a small house in the Uchiha district, its jaws and fur drenched in blood. While the clan was caught off guard from the attack, the family inside stood no chance. This home belonged to none other than Itachi Uchiha along with his parents and younger brother. Their bodies lay in pieces laid out over the room, while the youngest child Sasuke was trapped under the remains of his own mother. The shock of the attack had sunk deep into his mind, rendering him catatonic. It was this sight that greeted Itachi. Having returned from a mission a mere 10 minutes ago, at seeing the sight before him, Itachi was motionless. As his Sharingan activated on its own, slowly his eyes shifted and transformed, until the Mangenkyo Sharingan was reborn for the first time in decades. As a howl cut through the air, his head snapped in the direction the beast ran to. With murder in his eyes, he vanished in a blur of pure speed. Had he bothered to stay longer, he would have noticed 2 things. The leg of his brother twitch, as well as a shadow in the corner. Slowly the shadow grew until a cloaked figure appeared. Though no features could be made out, it spoke with a hollow, sinister voice. Well, it would appear Master has a new set of eyes. As many of the clan tried to get into battle formations, Fenrir charged them. As the Uchiha unleashed a barrage of fire jutsu, it was only dark irony that the blood of their comrades protected the beast from the flames. His claws and fangs tearing into all he saw. His primal mind had led him here, in search of his prey. Having been drawn by a small trace of his scent, he was now on the warpath. As its eyes locked onto a small child lost in the chaos, the fighting Uchiha looked on in horror as Fenrir charged. As the beast was a mere 8 feet from its goal, a blast of fire sent the wolf into a wall. With hopeful eyes, the child looked up to see none other than Itachi himself, dressed in full Anbu battle gear. As Fenrir recovered, it glared at Itachi with the burning rage of 1,000 hells, while Itachi merely clenched his fists. As twin flames formed around his fists, each one was jet black, while Itachi's Sharingan turned into the infamous and legendary Mangenkyo form. The look in his eyes showed that if Fenrir so much as flinched, he would die. As he was about to attack, the wind flowed gently, bringing with it a scent that had drawn Fenrir here in the first place. Lifting his head into the air, Fenrir took the scent in. What was left of his mind near instantly tracked the scent to its source. With a feral snarl he leapt off towards his prey. As the beast vanished into the trees, Itachi simply watched as he ran away. When the wolf was gone he turned to gaze upon the remnants of his clan. In the mere 10 minutes the beast had attacked. Nearly half the clan had been slaughtered. Panicked, a member of the clan ran up to him and asked, "Lord Itachi, why did you just let the beast go?" Seeming to ignore him, he picked the child up. Looking around the burning compound, he said solemnly, "Enough people have fallen today. Besides, I have already alerted the Anbu Black Ops. Now let us bury the dead and figure out where it came from." With that he went to find the child's family. Little did he know the beast was after his charge.
In his training field, Naruto was taking a small break. While Anko was torturing the academy instructors he was training, little did he know he was being watched by 3 men who had arrived in the village a mere 10 minutes ago. Having sensed Naruto through their training, the 3 were now observing him to test his mettle. As they were about to test him, a howl tore through the air.
Naruto was shocked as Fenrir leapt out of the tree line. The beast had landed 20 feet away from the blonde. As 2 of the men were about to leap in, the third in the middle raised his arms to stop them. Shocked, they looked at their leader for answers. All the man did was nod his head towards the other end of the field. For there in the tree line was a squad of Anbu Black Ops. They were waiting to see what would happen. In the field Naruto was petrified. The beast snarled as bloody drool flowed from his maw. His whole body was shaking as Fenrir began to circle him. It took all Naruto had to simply keep eye contact with the beast. Fenrir had a crazed look in his eyes, as the prey he had been hunting was finally within his grasp. It was the sheer joy of the hunt that had kept him from killing the boy then and there. It was at that very second that he gave in. With a vicious snarl he leapt at him.
Naruto was paralyzed with fear. As his prey was within reach, Naruto's eyes seemed to gloss over. For a brief moment his iris glowed a faint blue. A split second later he made a sweeping motion with his hands. That simple move created a gust of wind strong enough to send the hound flying into the nearby lake. Still in his trance, Naruto then made several fluid sweeping moves as the water followed his movements. The lake churned and twisted into a sphere, as Fenrir was trapped in the water's flow, with only his head exposed. One final clench of his fists turned the water into a massive block of ice. Moments later Naruto was released from his trance to find the wolf growling at him. Naruto's heart went out to the beast. Staring into Fenrir's eyes he could see the loss deep down inside that had brought about the rage. The 2 groups watched in awe, as Naruto seemed to stare in a mix of sadness and pity. What happened next they would never forget for the rest of their lives. With shaky steps Naruto walked closer to the beast. The mini iceberg rested 6 feet off the shore. Each step towards him Fenrir snarled louder and fiercer. Yet Naruto kept walking, till he was nearly waist deep in the shallow lake. While Fenrir's snout was a mere few inches away, his head could fully move as he threshed against the bindings. Naruto waited till just the right moment, before leaping towards the hound. Wrapping his arms around the beast's neck he began to cry slightly as he said gently, I'm so sorry for your loss. Please just don't be angry anymore. I know whoever loved you wouldn't want you like this." Fenrir froze in his place, unable to comprehend what the boy had just done. Yet fate had other thing in mind. As Naruto tapped into the power of the Avatar, along with his link with the water binding Fenrir, without realizing it he bonded with Fenrir, making him his spirit familiar. Like a river being undammed, energy flowed into Fenrir from Naruto. The healing power of the water bending arts granted only to a select few flowed into Fenrir, unlocking a transformation not seen in this world. Slowly the ice began to melt and flow into Fenrir. The blood was washed away as did the rage. When the last of the ice melted, a blue light engulfed Fenrir, causing Naruto to shield his eyes. While in the trees the priests were in awe. As the light faded they couldn't speak at the sight before them. The first to find his voice said in awe, "It cannot be. The hound of the north wind Suicune, said to purify all the world's waters with a single touch." In their own hiding place the Anbu were frozen in a mix of fear and awe, unable to understand just what had happened before their very eyes. What was once a crazed beast with endless bloodlust had transformed into a hound unlike any the world had ever seen. Standing before Naruto was a completely transformed hound. Standing at just over 7 feet tall, his fur was now mostly light blue, with his paws and underbelly white. On the outside of each leg and torso was 7 white diamond-like marks lined up. His snout, that was once long and filled with massive fangs, was now less than half its original length, as well as rounded and softer. From its forehead like a crown was a large stretched-out pentagon.
From his head flowed a mane of violet hair, nearly as long as his body. His tail had become two thin white ribbons that, instead of running behind the hound, ran along his body on each side. Yet his eyes glowed with an energy that seemed otherworldly, while all the water in the lake became crystal clear, as if charged with otherworldly purity. No trace of blood was left from Fenrir's fur, while everything living in the lake became revitalized.
Naruto was in awe of the hound's transformation. Yet what happened next would become one of the greatest memories of his life. The hound moved to show him his side, then lowered his massive frame like a horse, giving his rider an easier time getting on. Naruto genuinely took a full minute to comprehend what it wanted, before he climbed on the hound. With a high-pitched howl he was off, running at speeds that would give ninja a run for their money, following the river that flowed from the lake.
The two priests looked at their leader as he said in a way that left no room for argument, "We must inform Lady Revan immediately." Naruto was having the time of his life. At first the sudden run had scared him.
Yet now, seeing the trees blurring past, the wind whipping through his hair,
he was in a total state of awe and wonder. Meanwhile the hound was running as if he was reborn. Following the river they soon began to reach a fair-sized waterfall. As he continued without hesitation, Naruto began to worry. Then, as the fall were a mere 10 feet away, he gripped tightly to his fur. With a small howl the mighty hound leapt off the falls, while Naruto screamed loudly. After several moments he realized that they weren't falling. Slowly he looked down to find out why, only for his eyes to widen in shock, as the hound's feet were covered in small clouds. Looking around himself he slowly realized that he was flying. One of his greatest dreams was now realized. The small child did what any child would do. With one of the largest smiles he had ever made, he cheered in absolute joy. For nearly 10 minutes they were in the sky, before the hound softly landed on the ground, atop the Hokage monument, ironically above the fourth's head. Carefully Naruto climbed off the hound. As he slowly walked around to face him, the two looked at each other for what seemed an eternity, until Naruto said, amazed, "That was amazing. I have so many questions, but I just know this isn't the time, but you're gonna need a name." At that the hound lowered his head. Just when his snout touched his forehead a name echoed through his mind. Suicune. Looking up at him Naruto smiled and said, "Your name's Suicune, nice to meet you. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. But where am I gonna keep you? You're not exactly house size." Suicune let out a small grin, as a small burst of water engulfed him. When the water vanished a small puppy was in his place. The puppy's fur was light blue with white paws. Picking up the puppy he smiled and said, "Wow, that was amazing, Suicune." Now Anko can't say no. Snapping from his thoughts he looked up to see it was well past noon. Panicked he said more to himself, "Oh no, I'm gonna be late. Anko is going to be let out soon." With that he ran through the forest, intent on reaching his home before his roommate. Meanwhile in the main embassy for foreign diplomats, the head priestess Revan heard the reports from her 3 most trusted men. When they were finished she closed her eyes in deep thought. The 6 watched as she seemed to become a statue. Nearly 5 full minutes passed before she finally opened her eyes. With an almost ethereal voice she said, "I see this is most disconcerting. The very beast that slaughtered the Uchiha, reborn as a legendary spirit of purity and life. This child clearly has a power this world has never seen before. We cannot allow him to fall into dark hands." It was then she seemed to radiate an aura of mischief. "Perhaps we have found a worthy husband for my little Shien." In his office the third Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi had finished listening to the report given by both Itachi Uchiha and the Anbu squad sent after the beast. What he had heard was unlike anything he had heard in years. Yet he was not known as the professor for nothing. Like a true Hokage he had filed everything away. Going over every last detail he looked up at the assembled Anbu. It was them he gave his orders. "Wolf and Hawk, head to the Uchiha compound and aid the cleanup. Itachi, it would seem that you are the new head of the Uchiha clan. This may seem cold but you must prepare for the funeral service and council meeting. Priestess Revan arrived several hours ago to discuss a new treaty. Ask to see if she will perform the services." With a swift salute the 3 Anbu left, leaving only one left in a dog mask, with long brown hair in a ponytail. The temperature dropped 10 degrees near instantly, with a glare that could drive off the devil himself. The third Hokage said with cold fury, "Hana, you have 10 minutes to bring Sume here, before I personally look for her." The young girl was visibly shaking, as she fled to find her own mother. While he waited Hiruzen looked at the ceiling, at what first appeared to be a show of madness. The third spoke in the empty room. I know you're listening, Danzo. If anything happens to the boy, you deal with me, Iroh, and you know who.
As the sun was setting that day, nearly the entire village had gathered to mourn the fallen. Those that had survived had built a massive funeral pyre. All that remained of the clan circled the pyre, while the new head of the clan, Itachi, looked at his brother's blank eyes, fearing what his brother may now one day become without some divine influence.
Leading the services was Revan herself. While she performed her chants for the departed, there were two sets of eyes not on the services, but on a small boy. One was the former head of the Inuzuka clan, Sume. She held no remorse for Fenrir's slaughter, believing it to be Naruto's fault. Her only concern was her clan's fate and revenge. Both would be decided by none other than Itachi himself. The other set of eyes was from a nearby building. Hidden under a cloak was a person not seen in the village in 5 years. From under the hood came several locks of golden hair, nearly identical to another blonde's, while a single bright, almost neon green eye coming through. From the cloak came a woman's voice. Though subtle, it held deep concern for the focus of her gaze. Be safe, Lil Naruto. With that, the cloaked figure vanished in a golden flash. The next day, the heads of the clan were gathered in a hidden chamber within the Hokage monument. Used only for two things: voting for the next Hokage and holding trials for clan heads themselves. The last act of mercy shown to the clan head before they are punished. The chamber was built to hold 100 clan heads. The benches rippled out in 6 rings, modeled after the Rinnegan of the Sage of 6 Paths himself, to grant the heads in the outer rings of view. The chamber was a large cone-shaped chamber. Each seat held the crest of the clan that held that seat, with the largest seat reserved for the Hokage himself, made to face the center of the room. In the center of the room, Sume was on her knees in chains. Chakra suppression seals made it so that she could barely breathe, yet the fury in her eyes burned with the intensity of the sun itself. With cold fury, the third Hokage spoke first, stating the charges placed upon her, while the clan heads listened in horror and shock. Sume Inuzuka, you have been brought here on the following charges: releasing an A-class threat upon the village, resulting in the deaths of 21 members of the Uchiha clan, as well as the heads Fugaku and his wife Makoto Uchiha. How do you plead? Glaring up at him, Sume's reply rivaled his own cold fury. If it means avenging Koga, nothing matters. With a frown, the third Hokage looked at her with pity and sadness. Having fought side by side with both her and Koga, he deeply felt as if he failed her. With a slight hint of regret in his voice, he said boldly, "Very well, let the trial begin." In their living room, Anko was staring at the puppy known as Suicune. She just seemed to be studying the small dog, while the dog just stared right back. Naruto, meanwhile, was watching them, slightly nervous. Without warning, Anko looked at Naruto and said bluntly, "No way." Shocked, Naruto looked at her, upset. "But it's true, big sis. Suicune was a big and he flew." With a chuckle, Anko looked at him, amused. "Oh please, you expect me to believe that this little bitty puppy is a big flying super?" She didn't get the chance to finish as Suicune leapt off the coffee table. In a swirl of water, he transformed. Landing on top of her, he pinned her to the floor. His muzzle was mere inches from her face. Anko had a blank look on her face as she stared at him. As he transformed back and sat on her, she looked at Naruto and said, "Okay, I believe you. You said he could fly?" All Naruto did was nod enthusiastically. Amazed, Anko began to pet the pup. The next day, in the main meeting room used to meet dignitaries, the third Hokage was meeting with Revan. For several hours they discussed the new treaty between their lands. Though he tried to focus on the moment in the treaty, his mind was drawn to Naruto and the Hound. Having ordered a full squad of Anbu to monitor him, their reports on his apparent elemental manipulation amazed him. Finally he was snapped out of it as Revan said calmly, "My dear Hokage, I believe an arranged marriage would greatly benefit relationships between our peoples." Shocked that she would purpose such a thing, he asked her as gently as he could, "Why do you think such a thing is needed?" Taking a sip of her tea, Revan looked at him with a fox-like grin in her eyes. "Oh, it's simple really. Nothing brings people together like a wedding, and I have just the two in mind. My dear daughter Shion and a boy I have seen great promising things about. A boy named Naruto Uzumaki, I believe his name is." The look on his face was priceless to her. With a rare stammer, the third Hokage asked, confused, "Naruto, but he is just an orphan with no claim to any clans. Why would you have your only child marry him?" All the playfulness left her eyes as she said with all seriousness, "Don't play with me, old man. While my darling daughter can see the future, I can see the past. If that isn't enough, the child's mother was once a bodyguard of mine.
I recognized him instantly as hers. How those in this village can't is beyond me. Not only that, but I know about his odd power over the elements. As well as the hound Suicune being his new companion. His is a power too great to ignore in its infancy. He could swing both ways, Hiruzen. With Shion at his side I can rest easy. Or I could take matters into my own hands. Letting all her former enemies know her son lives. How long before they send assassins?
The way in which she said the last part left no room for discussion. With a heavy sigh, the third Hokage made his decision. Looking at her, he said, defeated. Very well, though they cannot be married until his 13th birthday. As per the laws of the Land of Fire. Now tell me what you know about Naruto's powers. In his private chamber, Madara was beyond ecstatic. What was once taken from him was now partially restored. Though his left socket could no longer hold an eye. His right one now held the eye of Fugaku Uchiha himself. The demented ninja stood in front of a large mirror, though he didn't look any older than when he fought at the Valley of the End. The area around his left socket was scarred and looked to be gouged out, while a vertical scar ran over his right eye. With a sinister grin, he turned to face the woman behind him. With a smooth, almost aristocratic tone, he said,
"Well done, my dear. You have given back to me my light."
Standing not far behind him was a woman with short, spiky pink hair. The tips were dyed red as her green eyes showed a madness like no other. While on the left side of her face was a complex seal, resembling a tribal tattoo. At no older than 20, she had a figure most women could only dream about, dressed in a form-fitting black stealth suit. The crest of the Haruno clan was on each of her shoulders, while she had several blades strapped to her body. This was none other than Rain Haruno, former heir of the Haruno clan, exiled for the slaughter of 3 villages in the Land of Horses. Yet there was another title she held more proudly. The right hand of Madara. Walking over to his loyal servant, he snaked his right arm around her waist. Pulling her close, he grinned and said, "Time for your reward, my dear." She then grinned like a lunatic as he tested the powers of his new Sharingan. The genjutsus used on her would drive most seasoned ninja to madness. Yet each one was a dream for her. As the last illusion tore through her mind, she moaned and said, "Thank you, my lord." Letting her go, he then said calmly, as if nothing happened, "Now go, my dear, and locate your predecessor. I fear she may know about the plan." Bowing, she then vanished in a swirl of cherry blossom petals. There, another chapter done. I know it's a bit iffy in certain places, especially around Tsume's trial, Anko meeting Suicune, and various other places. Now, before anyone flames me, yes, Naruto did go into the avatar state. It's a defense mechanism for a reason. Now, because he is a first-generation avatar, he doesn't have the combined powers of all his past lives. Nope, just raw instinct and emotion. In this FIC, the Haruno clan isn't a bunch of fangirls or, God forbid, fanboys. In this FIC, though not commonly shown, will be one of the more infamous clans. Their bloodline giving them control over plants similar to poison ivy from DC, as well as a slight ability to shape-shift. While Rain will be this Fixitachi in skills, she will also be completely devoted to Madara. The figure in the cloak during the funeral will be one hell of a twist, though you have to wait to see just who she really is. Also, the harem has been decided, though I was slightly disappointed at how little votes I got, but here are the lucky girls. Azula, Anko, Shion, Dot, and a 4th mystery girl. That will be revealed later. Lastly, they have finally released a new trailer for the Last Airbender movie and a few previews. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but M. Night Shyamalan may have made a decent movie. Look out, it's the end of the world. 20 miles north of Konoha Molten Lake Prison. In all the elemental nations, there was one prison feared beyond all others. In the 500 years since its construction by the now dead Vulcan clan. Originally a fortress built into a dead volcano, it descends into depths known only by the original builders. Only the most feared of criminals are sent to this hell on earth. From the skies above, Molten Lake Prison lived up to its name in every way. The tallest mountain in all the Land of Fire, covered in cracked, broken earth. No life appeared to come within miles of the mountain, as if the mountain itself was marked by some unseen hand, while the summit stood out beyond anything else. At nearly 8 miles wide, the volcano's peak was a crater left over from its final eruption. While filling the crater to nearly the brim was a sea of molten lava. Bubbling and white-hot, it was created through jutsus and bloodline long since lost to the world. In the center of the sea of molten rock and fire lay a massive spire. The surface unfazed by the heat and flames. The smooth black stone rose far beyond the crater's edge, 10 stories into the sky.
It was only near the peak that large air shafts windows and the only entrance into the prison could be seen. On the very top of the spire rested a seal array as old as the prison itself. Beyond complex, some of the greatest seal masters in history have gone mad trying to unlock its secrets. Trying in vain to find a way to enter the depths of this hell.
This seal was the only way in or out of the prison, guarded at all times by 10 Enbu-class ninja. Their names known only to the warden at all times. For the main function of the seal was a dual-way summoning platform. Linked to a sister platform hidden to the west. It was a near-perfect system. Yet like all things it held a single flaw.
In a single solitary cell Sume Inuzuka was alone, with only a pinstripe suit and a number over her heart.
She was now reduced to nothing, once one of the most feared female ninja in all the Leaf Village. Her name held up amongst Tsunade Senju and Halibal Namikaze. Now she was nothing but a number. The only thing in her cell was a bed and a blank book. A pen and ink were supplied to her monthly to allow her to write whatever she wanted. Weightier it be a memoir or will. It was now her sole means to occupy herself. She didn't even have the grace of a window to tell the time. Only the flicker of a small light bulb. This was her life for the next 10 years. With a loud click the massive iron doors opened. With cold eyes she gazed up to see none other than the third Hokage himself. Flanked by 2 Anbu commanders. With cold fury Sume asked the man who sent her to this hell. "What do you want, old man?" "Come to bask in the glory of my husband going unavenged. Along with all those that the fox killed." With pity in his eyes he took several steps into the cell. "You should be thanking the heavens, Sume, for Itachi's mercy. While his clan called for your clan's death and enslavement. He knew it would do no good for the village or the clans. But there is another reason your sentence was only 10 years and not life." Looking at the Anbu he sent them a wordless sign-less message. That if they breathed a word about what they heard next, they would be dead before they ever finished the sentence. The seals on the back of their necks would ensure that. Looking back at Sume the third locked his eyes with hers. "What I'm about to tell you only 3 people alive know. Yet will be revealed in 10 years' time." Taking a moment to compose himself the third looked at her and revealed one of the single most guarded secrets in the world. A secret many have died to protect yet never realizing it. Every word caused her eyes to widen more in horror and shock. Pausing to take in the shocked, horrified look in her eyes, the third didn't let up as he finished what he had to say. The fox, while powerful, is still a beast. While the seal binding him was made by the Shinigami. A being beyond all others, Sume. I have nothing else to say to you. As the cell door closed, Sume was nearly catatonic, trying desperately to understand everything he had said. Seeing the book she leapt at it as if it was gold. With the fury of a man possessed she wrote down word for word what the third had said. Fearing she may lose it to her growing madness. The next 10 years would be the ultimate test. In the land of demons Revan was spending quality time with her daughter Xian. The two were currently in a massive garden. While Revan calmly told her child about her future husband. The child's reaction was like any little girl's. Excited and anxious to meet him. With starry eyes she begged her mother to tell her about him. Taking a sip of her tea, Revan smiled serenely at her daughter. Without any hesitation she said calmly, "Very well, where to start? He is almost as old as you. Though he's about 2 months older. He has gold hair and blue eyes and he is the son of a dear friend of mine." With starry eyes Xian asked her excited, "Who, mommy?" With a knowing smile Revan replied calmly, "Not telling." Her daughter's pout caused her to chuckle softly. Looking up at the sky Revan said calmly, "Wherever you are I hope you're safe, my old friend." As if answering her a soft breeze swept through the garden. Far to the north in the land of glaciers, where only a mere 3,000 people lived in eternal ice and snow. This barren wasteland was one of the few places not even demons dared tread. It was in the farthest northern borders of this land that a fortress lay forgotten. None know who built it or why. The small handful who have made the journey to merely see this wonder believe a massive treasure lays buried and lost to the world. Many have died in their attempts to breach this fortress, to claim the secrets of the forgotten land. Deep within the fortress was a chamber twice the size of the Hokage's tower. Lit by a series of crystals in the ceiling. It filled the chamber with artificial sunlight. The chamber itself was filled with plants from around the world, while at the end of this chamber was a set of doors not opened for eons. Carved on the doors was a sea serpent rising from the depths. A ripple design was his eyes, while around the door was ancient glyphs. The key to opening the doorway. Resting in front of the door was a woman in the lotus position, with golden blonde hair that was spiky in 3 thin braids. She had a deep tan along with a figure most women would kill to possess. Her build was clearly that of a seasoned fighter. She was dressed in a form-fitting white outfit. While resting on the ground in front of her was her weapon. A short heavy sword that at first glance resembled a meat cleaver. With a Western-style hilt. At the base of the blade was the symbol for the Namikaze clan. While the rest of the sword was nearly blacked out with dense silver seals. Their purpose known only to their maker. Yet at the heart of the array was the telltale seal for the most famous jutsu in all the modern ninja world. The Flying Thunder God Jutsu. This was Halibal Namikaze. Twin sister of the fourth Hokage himself. Also known as the Flash Shark of the Leaf. In deep meditation Halibal's thought were of what brought her to this place and time. How she was forced to abandon her own son. Not out of hatred or grief but to protect him from her former master. Who betrayed her and killed her brother. All in his quest to destroy the world. 5.5 years prior, Hidden Leaf Village border. With a beaten and bruised body, Halibal Namikaze was in the destroyed remains of a forest.
Her left eye was swollen shut, as she tried to gain her bearings. Looking up she saw a sight that made her blood run cold.
Her dear brother atop his summons Gamabunta. Facing the fox without fear. While she herself had held the fox off for nearly half an hour single-handed. She knew her brother could finish the beast off forever. Though beaten to hell she could tell the fox was on its last legs. Due in large part to the sacrifice of her clan. Yet that was not what made her blood run cold. No, it was what he held in his arms that made her scream out with all her remaining willpower and strength. No, Minato, leave him out of this. He's my son, you bastard. Her words never reached him as she saw him cast the sealing jutsu. Like a vortex the fox was reduced to mist. Only for the mist to be sealed into her only child. The tears pouring from her eyes were the first shed since her mother's passing. Not even when her lover left her did she cry. As if a dame had burst, her body was filled with newfound energy. For she had subconsciously opened the first inner gate. Getting to her feet she searched out with her mind. Finding the seal she herself had placed in her son's blanket. With a flash of yellow she was gone. 6 full miles away she reappeared in a small clearing. Created from the Gamabunta himself. Resting on the field was Minato's prone form. While in his arms Naruto was oddly sound asleep. His spiky blonde hair sticking out of the blanket. While whisker marks slowly appeared on his cheeks. A soft flash of yellow light caused the baby Naruto to whimper. Only to slowly open his eyes. On her knees Halibal was on her last legs. She was gasping for air as the boost of energy swiftly left her. Where many would have died 10 times from chakra exhaustion she fought on. With shaky arms she gently picked her son up. Her neon green eyes gazed into his sky blue. The only trace of his father she could make out. He could have passed as her brother's child, it was almost creepy to her. While her tears landed his whisker marks. His tiny hands reached out towards her.
Why, Minato? The fox was almost dead, you could have killed it. But instead you damn my son to this. I swear if you're not in hell I'll send you there myself, brother.
She was cut off as a swirl of flowers formed around her. When they dissipated they revealed a teenage rain. Blood covered half her outfit. While it was clear the blood was not hers. Clear panic was in her eyes as she said. Halibal Master's hurt. Something took his eyes from when he controlled the fox. Halibal's face went blank. Yet her eyes showed the shock and betrayal. With a whisper she said to himself. Controlled the fox? Looking down at her son she made the hardest choice of her life. One that would haunt her forever. Setting the child down she shakily stood up. Without looking at her soon-to-be enemy she said coldly. Take me there. Nodding she then took her away in a swirl of flower petals. A mere moment later Anbu led by the third arrived to find only Naruto crying.
Snapping back to the present her eyes slowly opened.
That was the day that started it all. When she saw her master for what he was. When she lost her dreams of raising her son. She had nearly killed Madara that day. A mere 1-inch her kunai was from his heart. Only for his faithful dog Rain stopping her. She had spent 3 full years recovering. Regaining her strength to face him again. Yet to her rage her former master had all but vanished. Yet she still had a plan. It was all a matter of time. She only prayed her son would one day forgive her. With an almost feral grin Anko charged at her opponent Naruto. Both were training hard as Anko used her newfound skills. With fluid almost serpent-like moves water flowed to her will. Becoming long whip-like extensions of her arms. Nearly 10 feet long they moved with a mind all their own. Naruto meanwhile was exercising the most valued skill of a ninja, dodging. Dashing through the field he tried his best to avoid her attacks. Yet when a hit did connect it was not a devastating blow. but a gentle swipe that caused him to stumble.
Nearby, sitting on a fallen tree, Iroh watched amused.
Suicune sleeping on his lap. He had simply made one little suggestion. Now it had spiraled into a new game for them. While Naruto looked scared at first glance, he could tell Naruto was having a great time. With a cup of hot tea in hand, he smiled and said, "You would be so proud of him." Taking a sip, he watched as Anko hit Naruto a 10th time. With a cheer, the hyperactive girl said loudly, "Yes, I win. Now you have to make me a whole cake out of dango." No sooner after she said those words, that she then leapt at him. Tackling him to the ground, she then began to tickle him. Watching the scene unfold, Iroh stood up and said proudly, "All right, my dear, it's almost time to meet your sensei, isn't it?" Sitting on top of Naruto, Anko crossed her arms and pouted. "All right, I'll go. But I guarantee that my team's gonna be some emo or worse, a fangirl. I bet my sensei is going to be worse." Getting off him, she then looked at Naruto and said, "Take my advice, Naruto. Tank everything they give you. That way you're guaranteed a decent teammate." As she turned to walk away, she stopped. Spinning on her heels, she called out, "Don't forget my dango cake." With that, she turned to leave, leaving a grinning Naruto to watch her go. Far away in the Hokage Tower, three people watched Naruto and Anko from a crystal ball. One was none other than the Hokage himself. His hardened gaze drifted to the other two in the room. One was a teenage girl no older than 17, with wild black hair reaching just past her shoulders. Her crimson eyes were almost hypnotic, while she was dressed in the standard Jonin uniform, modified with long crimson sleeves. This was the Genjutsu mistress of the Leaf Kurenai Yuhi, recently advanced to Jonin a mere month ago. She was one of the youngest ever to volunteer for the Sensei program. While many doubted her abilities, she was granted a trial chance to train. Standing next to her was a man with a reputation rivaling that of the third himself. Head of the Anbu Black Ops Department, Danzo was often called the Warhawk of the Leaf. With nearly half his head wrapped in bandages, only the left side of his face was visible, while an X-shaped scar was on his chin. From a sparring match with the second Hokage himself, he was dressed in robes that only granted him free movement of his left arm, while it would appear at first glance was a missing right arm. A true ninja could spot the truth, that he was armed and dangerous. The hidden blade in his cane was proof of that. Looking at Kurenai, the third said bluntly, "Well, that was but a small glimpse of her talent, but that is not why we called you here." Taking a silent message, Danzo took over for the aged leader and lifelong rival. Getting her attention, Danzo explained her mission. "My dear, the research department has studied this, bending, as they call it. They are, to put bluntly, clueless about it. It is a level of ninjutsu that could revolutionize the ninja world. We have confirmed that Itachi has begun to develop firebending, while clearly your soon-to-be student has learned waterbending. All this revolves around Naruto somehow. While he may not be the fox's vessel anymore, he still has some power. Get close to them. Use the bond between teacher and student. Find the key to this bending. If necessary, use your other skills. But failure is not an option." With a slight apprehensive nod, she wordlessly vanished in a swirl of leaves. After she was gone, Danzo looked at Sarutobi and said, "Is this wise, sending a greenhorn like this? Surely a more developed Jonin would have worked." Sighing, the third leaned back in his chair and replied, "Sadly, she is our best option. With sightings of Hannibal in the north, we can't risk a senior Jonin getting impatient. Also, this may be best for all parties involved. Her record shows Kurenai has a way with people. Her sensei held very high marks for her." With a raised eyebrow, Danzo asked, interested, "Oh, and just who was her sensei?" Looking at his rival, he said calmly, "None other than Ibiki Morino himself." Seeing the small twitch of Danzo's eye was all he needed. Gazing upon the photos of past cages, he said calmly, "The next few years are going to be hectic." 7 years later, training Hokage Monument. The sun was slowly rising into the sky as people went about their business. Shops opened and ninja went on their missions, while near the heart of the village next to the Hokage's tower, the final class for many aspiring ninja was about to take place. For 7 years they trained and learned, while many classes before held many impressive students who went on to become legends. This was the first ever class to hold the heirs to every clan in the village, from both civilian and ninja clans. In the largest classroom on the Ninja Academy, 59 students awaited the arrival of their instructor. Iruka Amino, former squad captain for the Anbu Black Ops, having gotten his trademark scar from battling the 5th Mizukage herself, when she was a member of the 7 Swordsmen of the Mist. Many who had seen the two together often claimed there was something else going on between them. With a soft slide of the door, Iruka entered to gaze upon his students. Clipboard in hand, he searched through them. Seeing an empty seat, his eyes narrowed as he asked the class, "Where's Naruto?" It was then his Anbu senses kicked in. Taking a step back just in time, as a massive black ball of cloth blasted through the window. As it was halfway through the classroom, the ball unfurled. As a kunai tied to each corner of the cloth hit the ceiling and floor, pinning a large banner that said in bold white letters, "Naruto Uzumaki is here." Standing in front of the banner was Naruto himself. The past 7 years had done wonders for the blonde. The 13-year-old now stood at just under 5 feet tall. His golden blonde hair was now identical to the 4th Hokage's, causing many to think he was the 4th's bastard son. While he now had a fighter's build, while he seemed to radiate an odd sense of power. He was dressed in black cargo pants with a kunai holster on his right leg. His black shirt had an orange Chinese dragon wrapped around it, while over this was a worn long coat with the sleeves torn off. One of the pockets on the right side was larger than normal. It was in this pocket that Suicune rested, his head and paws sticking out. Raising his fist in the air, he said proudly, "Let's do this thing." Standing behind the banner, Iruka looked annoyed as he thought to himself, "I should have known. Anko did the same thing. Might as well get this over with." With that, he began the near impossible task of getting the class back in order. Atop the Hokage tower, Anko Mitarashi was beaming with pride. The special Jonin was in her trademark fishnet outfit and tan trench coat, while tied to her hip was a small metal flask, with a storage seal carved into the side, along with the symbol of the Mitarashi clan. With a massive grin, she pretended to cry as she said, "I'm so proud of him. He takes after his big sis so much. Give them hell, kiddo." At the main gate to the Leaf Village, the two guards were slightly bored. All that had come through were simply the usual merchants and ninjas on missions. Just as they were about to fall asleep, they caught sight of a young girl approaching the gate. Not recognizing the person, they were immediately on guard. When the girl reached the gate, they said as one, "Halt, state your name and reasons for coming." The girl was in a dark red cloak, standing at just under 5 feet tall. Most of her face was covered by the hood. With a soft, amused chuckle, the girl reached for her hood. The two guards were ready for anything but what happened next. As the hood fell back, it revealed a young girl no older than 15. Her midnight black hair was flawlessly done. With a bun for most of it, 2 large bangs framed her face, while her onyx eyes held a mischievous look in them. Looking at the two guards, she said calmly, "My name is Azula Uchiha. I would like to see the Hokage, please." There, another chapter done. I hope you all didn't have to wait too long. Now on to the major points. As to Naruto's lineage, I made him the 4th's nephew for various reasons, such as I don't think a father could really do that to their own kid. Well, except the 4th Kazekage. Now I made his mother Hallible from Bleach because they do sort of look alike. Now the Namikaze clan was small and blessed with higher than normal chakra, so much that they normally have little to no control. Hallible and Minato sought ways around this. Minato with a Sannin teacher. Hallible with Madara as a teacher. As for his father, well, that will be revealed much later, around chapter 12 or so. Now I want you all to vote. When will mother and son meet? Today had been a rather pleasant day for the 3rd Hokage. Despite the genin tests that would take nearly half the day, he had managed to complete his paperwork in record time. While preparing for the results of the tests, he had known that many of them were sure wins, such as the heirs of the Uchiha Hyuga and Naruto himself. Contrary to his grades, he knew the child could give a Jonin a good fight. The advice Anko had given the boy was a true lesson of the ninja art of deception. Thus, when one of the gate guards arrived with a young woman claiming to be a Uchiha, he knew that his peaceful day was over. In the Hokage's office, the aged leader was meeting with the young girl known as Azula Uchiha. The pleasant surprise of this child was a welcome change. While an Anbu agent stood by the door, Azula herself was sitting in a chair across from the Hokage. Looking at the young girl, he asked calmly as not to anger the teenage girl, "So tell me, child, where are you from?" With a small chuckle, Azula looked at him and replied calmly, "That is a rather unique tale, Lord Hokage. You see, I only learned of my heritage recently. I come from a small harbor town in the land of currents. We rarely have to worry about ninja matters. I never knew my father, but my mother was head of the local guard. She knew a few jutsu but nothing major. About 3 years ago I managed to awaken this." Closing her eyes, she took a deep breath. As she opened them, the proof of her claim was revealed. As twin Sharingan eyes looked into the thirds, each one was fully mature and unlike normal Sharingan eyes. These ones seemed to radiate a kind aura, instead of a fierce intimidating one. Oh so common in the clan. After several moments she closed her again. Only to reopen them return to normal. At seeing the slight shock from the Hokage she couldn't help but chuckle. I take it you thought I was lying. To be honest, I didn't know myself until a month ago. When my mother finally told me about my father. Apparent near the end of the last war. A small battle took place near my village. Between a platoon of Leaf Ninja and Rock Ninja. When it was over my mother found a survivor. Nursing him back to health she found that he had amnesia. He stayed for a year before he passed away. It was a hunting accident, but he never found out who he was. The third's heart went out to her. As she took a moment to compose herself, after several deep breaths she finished her story. I was born just before that and had a happy life, though my mother made sure I could defend myself. Then about a month ago word about the clan reached us finally. I know it was several years but we just don't reside in ninja-heavy lands. When I heard about what happened to them I was torn. I wanted to meet my family that survived. To learn what my father might have been like. The third didn't know why but he trusted her. Yet the split-second glance he sent towards the Anbu told the back ops agent to verify her story. Looking at her he asked calmly. I see my dear. How long do you plan to stay in the village? With an almost forlorn look in her eyes she said sagely. I honestly don't know. I was hoping to find a living here. My home is nice but it's just so remote. I can already tell the village is wonderful. I love to cook, maybe I could work in a restaurant. I never was cut out to be a ninja. As she said those words she was thinking to herself. Though I was one hell of a firebender. Looking at her he said calmly. Well I must say this is a pleasant surprise. Though there will be a probationary period. We simply can't allow someone to just enter the village. Fortunately the process is simple. You simply need a sponsor to watch you. Preferably a member of a related clan. And I know just the man. The look in the Hokage's eyes was a mix of mischief and the cunning wit of a master chess player. While Azula's years of playing the very same game knew every move the old man was making. While she herself had made every possible counter-plan. All to rejoin the love of her life. Nearly 2 hours later the grueling tests had finished. Out of the many students to enter the academy, only 2 had failed the tests horribly, leaving 57 students awaiting their teacher's word. The tests had been over for nearly 10 minutes. While Naruto sat near the back beside 2 of his best friends. To his right was a slightly overweight young man with odd swirls on his cheeks. His rusty brown hair and thick arms were classic traits of an Akamichi. While the bag of potato chips in his right hand was the final giveaway, this was none other than Choji Akamichi. Though at first glance he seemed like a typical well-fed civilian. A trained ninja could tell a single solid blow from him could shatter boulders. Having been friends with Naruto since joining the academy, he had gone on many adventures with him. Many times he would be the voice of reason for Naruto's almost insane impulses. On the other side sat a young man with black hair tied back, greatly resembling the top of a pineapple, while he physically had the build of a ninja. The fact that the young boy was sound asleep showed that he was a member of the infamous Nara clan. Famous for the shadow jutsu and deer herding, it is said the founder of the clan could travel from the land of fire clear to the land of waves in seconds, simply by turning into a shadow. For years he had been a rival with Naruto for lowest grades, almost becoming a competition between them. With each test came a new winner. He was the tactical mind that made all of Naruto's plans possible, at the same time making it so that they wouldn't get caught. This was Shikamaru Nara, heir of the Nara clan. With an amused grin Naruto looked at Choji and asked calmly. So Choji, how do you think we did? Swallowing the chips he had been chewing, Choji looked out over the classroom. His eyes stopped on a few as he said calmly. Well, I know Sasuke is top of the class. All he does is train and fight. Sakura is right up there. But I know one thing for sure. It's either you or Shikamaru for dead last. I understand why you two go for the spot. But seriously man, how can you put up with people calling you dead last? With that same wicked grin Naruto leaned back in his chair and said amused. The simple thought of the looks on their faces when I whoop their arrogant asses. Mere moments later Iruka walked into the room. A clipboard in his right hand. Almost as when the students stopped what they were doing. Several had nearly stopped breathing. This was the moment they had spent years waiting for. The results of their tests. Looking at his class for what may be the final time, Iruka took a moment to remember the children who had first came into his class. It had taken all his skills to rein them in. Now they were on their first steps to greatness. Alright, listen up class. I'm proud of each and every one of you. You came here nothing more than children. Now I have the honor of seeing you become ninja. The trials ahead of you will be great. The foes many but the rewards will be greater. As long as you hold true to the will of fire. Never forget that as ninja of the Leaf Village. You are not just members of noble clans. The whole village is your family. Take care of them and they will take care of you. Holding up the clipboard he then said in a more serious tone. Okay, now that the long-winded speech is out of the way. I have an announcement to make. Foregoing the test score for the past 7 years. The final placements will be decided on how well you performed on your final tests. All the color drained from Naruto's face as he said in a state of almost blank shock. What? Ignoring him, Iruka explained to the rest of the class. The Hokage feels that the academy puts too much on academics. Honestly, I agree with him. How is knowing the second Hokage's middle name ever going to save your life? Thus we graded you on chakra control, number of jutsus displayed, as well as chakra amount and relative taijutsu skills. Looking at Naruto, he could see him nearly sweating. Having known for some time Anko's telling him to fail on purpose. Yet she failed to tell him not to show off in the final exam. Looking at the clipboard he then said, barely able to contain his grin. I shall now name the 5 highest scoring students. Starting with the Rookie of the Year. At first place is Naruto Uzumaki. A loud thump caused everyone to look back. Only to find Naruto had hit his head on the desk, knocking himself out. Ignoring it, Iruka continued. Next is Sasuke Uchiha, followed by Sakura Haruno, Choji Akamichi and Hinata Hyuga. Next is Kiba Inuzuka. Your headbands can be obtained at the Wolf Ka weapon shop tomorrow. While ninja registration will take place at the same time as when you get the headband. Now are there any questions? Standing straight up, Kiba all but yelled at Iruka. Damn straight, I got a question. How the hell did the runt make Rookie of the Year? He shouldn't even be a damn ninja. The final words of his mother before being taken away had never left the young Inuzuka's mind. Since he was a child, he had sworn to finish what her mother had started. Yet unlike his mother, he knew how to wait for the right moment, buying time with verbal jabs and vicious remarks. With a stern glare, Iruka looked at one of his greatest failures. He had hoped to work out the boy's blind hatred of Naruto. Yet all his attempts had failed miserably. Seeing that many of the class were wondering the same thing, he decided to simply tell them. As he was about to speak, it was none other than Sasuke Uchiha that explained. His eyes were stone cold as he spoke with almost no emotion. The dead last was failing on purpose. He has more chakra than all of us in this room combined. While he lives with a special Jonin who's not afraid to show him advanced and powerful jutsu. My father often comments on his raw power. Those that knew Sasuke knew that he was jealous of his raw power. While several in the classroom looked at Naruto in new light, while several who actually looked back would find Suicune standing next to his head, his right paw patting his unconscious head in sympathy. As the final chime rang throughout the school, Iruka looked at the students about to leave and said, the rest of the placements will be posted tomorrow. In 1 week come back for team placements. His words nearly fell on deaf ears, as every student bolted out of the room. Several having leapt through the window Naruto destroyed. All that was left was Naruto, Choji and Shikamaru. With a loud yawn the Nara heir woke up to find an empty classroom, with only a knocked out Naruto and a worried Choji next to him. Confused he asked, bored. What I miss? With a sigh Choji slung Naruto over his shoulder. Come on, I'll explain on the way. You take Suicune, this is gonna be a long one. Picking up the puppy Shikamaru asked, annoyed. Come on man, how bad could it be? Stopping to look at his dearest friend. Choji almost had a haunted look in his eyes that creeped Shikamaru out. He made Rookie of the Year. Outside the school many heard a man yell loudly, yet for the life of them wouldn't believe who they thought the voice sounded like. Oh shit. At the Sleepy Dragon, Iroh was calmly putting away the latest shipment of supplies. His trip to the nearby trade town had been fruitful in more ways than one. As he placed a large box of spices away, he stopped as he held a fair-sized jar of a rare spice called in its native and as cinnamon. With a small smile he said to himself, my dear, this was always your favorite. As he was about to put it away he noticed that it was far lighter than it should be. Looking at the container he saw the seal was intact. With swift hands he opened the container. As the lid came off he found not the spice, but a small piece of paper. Taking the paper out he looked at the paper. His aged eyes nearly popped out of their sockets as he saw the seal of the Namikaze clan. Yet what shocked him even more was the familiar handwriting, belonging to only one person. With swift eyes he read the contents, dedicating everything to memory. It's been too long, Godfather. I know we were never close, but I need to meet with you. I'll be at the Howling Inn at Tanzaku Town on the 5th. Sincerely, Flash Shark. Looking at the calendar, he saw he had 10 days to meet with his wayward goddaughter. As the note burst into flames in his hands, he said gently, "Till then, my child." It was well past midnight in the Hidden Leaf Village. While many were sound asleep, two were wide awake, one out of anger and sadistic glee, the other out of fear and pain. In the infamous Forest of Death, a burnt, smoking and terrified Naruto was hiding in a hollowed-out tree. Suicune was nowhere in sight, as the once faithful hound had fled the moment it saw Anko. The hound was far smarter than Naruto, having fled the moment it saw here. For when she found out he made Rookie of the Year, she had decided to make him earn the title. Thus the 10-hour hunt, involving every jutsu and weapon in her arsenal. With hagged breaths he looked around for his hunter. Fear ran down his spine as every sound caused him to nearly jump out of his skin. Yet he never noticed her appear, as if from the shadows itself behind him. Leaning in close, she whispered into his ear, "You should be running, Rookie." The tree then exploded as Naruto ran for dear life. A crazed Anko was laughing as she sent water whips after him.
Far to the west in the land of demons, a 14-year-old girl was happily gathering her things.
With long, dirty blonde hair, she had a generous figure, inherited from her mother. While she wasn't a ninja, she radiated an aura like no other. Skilled in the art of sacred jutsu, she was trained in the art of the priestess. When she had heard of her engagement, she was excited, only to grow worried about fulfilling her duties. Her mother had solved that by having a new temple built in the village, built behind the monument. It would soon become the center of the village's spiritual needs. The original temple destroyed in the Second War. As she finished packing the last of her things, she stopped to look at a framed photo. Picking it up, she smiled as she said to herself, "Don't worry, I'll be there soon. Just a couple more weeks." With a girlish giggle, she then went to check on her travel arrangements, leaving the photo behind. The photo was of none other than Naruto, taken without his knowing recently. It showed him in a fighting pose. There, another chapter done with. I know it's short but sweet. If you have any thoughts, feel free to leave a review. By the way, this story has had 4,000 hits, and only 70 reviews. I'm almost hurt. What has me the most shocked is that not a single person has asked a question I thought would be on all their minds. How does Azula have the Sharingan? Well, the answer is short but sweet. She acquired it from Madara during the sealing. When she got her new body, she retained that little power. Far to the west in the heart of the land of crystal, a castle stood tall and proud, nearly 20 stories tall from base to tip. While the base itself covered nearly 20 acres, yet despite the castle's intimidating size, there was one thing a person would notice immediately. The castle was long since abandoned, while the scars from battles long since fought riddled the surface. While the second thing one would notice would be the symbol for the Uchiha clan on every wall. Worn from age and nearly faded away, this was the once legendary home of the Uchiha clan, said to have housed the clan for over 100 years. Lost to them when 4 rival clans banded together to take them down. The clans were then soon hunted down one by one and slaughtered, their names wiped from the history books. Yet in one small area of the castle lay a forgotten sword. Plain and simple, it was like any one of thousands in the world save one thing. The worn, faded symbol of the Namikaze clan was carved into the hilt. While the land above the castle was a ghost town, beneath the castle was another matter altogether. For beneath the ancient castle the gears of war were at full speed, as the plans of a madman were beginning to take shape. Deep beneath the castle, in catacombs long since forgotten, the sounds of machinery echoed throughout the chambers, as a factory was in full swing. In the largest chamber, larger than the Hokage Tower itself, a man covered head to toe in heavy blue robes gazed out upon his handiwork. Not a single feature could be made out about him, while large seals covered his bulky robes. While one could see his gaze was fixed on the machines below him, as the weapons they made would soon terrorize the world. Without any sign of fear or shock, the man spoke in a distorted, almost mechanical voice. "Come to check on me, I see." The space beside him warped and distorted, as an orange mask slowly seemed to bleed into existence. The spiral of the mask centered on the man's right eye. Slowly the rest of him appeared, revealing a body hidden by a massive black cloak, covered in red clouds. The man radiated two things and two things only: unending darkness and emptiness unlike any other. It was as if the man existed yet didn't exist at the same time. This was the true Madara Uchiha. With a calm, aristocratic voice, Madara said calmly, "I see you have increased production. Will your clan be able to control them?"
Almost seeming to be offended, the cloaked man said bluntly. Of course we can. If need be, we could control millions of them. The question is, will you be able to uphold your part of the plan?
Crossing his arms, Madara said in a tone that left no room for discussion. I already have all the pieces in place. The leaf will soon burn and chaos will soon follow. Turning to face Madara, the cloaked man said in a voice that seemed hollow yet at the same time pure rage incarnate. Soon we will destroy the leaf. Soon we shall have our revenge. Below them the fruits of the labor were ready to unleash the hell of war and destruction. Creations that knew no mercy, that knew nothing of the word humanity. In the hidden leaf village, Naruto Uzumaki was slowly making his way to the famous Wolf Claw weapon shop. Said to have been built before there even was a hidden leaf village, if one was to believe the stories about the shop. The village was built where it was simply because the shop was there. It was the current shop owner's own great-grandfather that invented the modern forehead protector. That was swiftly adopted by every village in the known ninja world. Now it was the main supplier for 3 villages. Simply 3 streets away from the Hokage Tower, at the end of the famous business district, lay the Wolf Claw weapon shop. The shop itself was 2 stories tall, with every type of weapon in the known ninja world. While behind the massive shop was a forge manned at all times by the 6 best smiths in all the lands of fire. Many blacksmiths spent their whole lives dreaming of working that forge. With a slight limp, Naruto arrived at the shop. A small line of graduates from both his class as well as 2 others came out of the shop. As he sighed annoyed, he looked to find none other than Shikamaru waiting at the end of the line. Limping over, he said calmly, "Took your sweet time, I see." With a yawn, the notoriously lazy Nara replied, "Yeah, well, you weren't exactly early yourself." Wincing, Naruto sighed and said, "Yeah, well, Anko doesn't exactly know the meaning of the word restraint. If I hadn't have made a crapload of shadow clones to get her one weakness, I wouldn't have made it here on time." Curious, Shikamaru asked him calmly, "Just what is her weakness?" With a knowing grin, Naruto replied calmly, "That's my secret and my secret alone. Besides, it saved my life more than once." In their apartment, Anko was busy eating a large plate full of dango. With a happy grin, she stopped to say to herself, "Now he's earned it. I really should do this more often." Next to her, Suicune watched unamazed, as nearly 10 pounds of the sweets was exhaled. Seeing the look the puppy was giving her, she stopped. After a moment of silence, she handed the pup a stick. "There, now stop looking at me with those puppy eyes." A small bark was her reply as he began to help himself. As she ate, plans on how to train Naruto were swiftly forming in her mind. Most of them would be considered extreme by most standards, yet to her they were simply fun. On the other side of the Leaf Village, a meeting was taking place that would decide the fate of many to come. In the main mansion of the Uchiha district, Itachi sat calmly in his office. Portraits of past clan heads lined the walls, along with records going back to before Madara himself. While he sat at his desk, across from him sat Azula. Her cloak was gone, revealing a dark crimson shirt and black pants. Between the two was a tea set. As she calmly took a sip of her tea, Azula couldn't help but remember the tea her dear uncle made. Many had considered it the best in all the Fire Nation. Seeing her in deep thought, Itachi asked calmly, "Something wrong, my dear?" Looking up at him, she replied calmly, "No, I was just remembering my dear uncle. He always loved his tea." With a nod of his head, Itachi closed his eyes. As he slowly reopened, then he said calmly, "Are you going to tell me the truth, my dear? About where you are really from?" As he activated his sharing, and she knew the jig was up. With a small grin, she asked calmly, "How did you know?" With a menacing glare, Itachi said calmly, "Though we're not as strict as the Hyuga clan, we do track where we lose members of our clan. The Hokage told me your story. It took me only 5 minutes to find the truth. Now tell me, my dear. Why shouldn't I tell him you're lying?" Closing her eyes, Azula opened them to reveal the Sharingan eye. As Itachi was about to attack, she said calmly, "Relax, I'm simply going to show you my past. When I'm done, you will understand why I have done what I have done." The room around them shifted and distorted, until with one final flash, Itachi no longer stood in his office, Azula's genjutsu having taken him to another world. As the light faded, he opened his eyes to see a place he never imagined. Itachi now stood atop a massive mountain, clear the ridge of a long silent volcano. Looking around, he saw a massive city, easily the size of the Hidden Leaf Village. The city was clearly the seat of a mighty empire. Looking out beyond the volcano, he saw a city stretching beyond the mountain, while he could barely make out the coast, where dozens of iron warships lay ready to set sail. As he looked on, confused Azula walked up beside him. She herself gazed out upon the capital of the Fire Nation with a forlorn look in her eyes. Beautiful, is it not? This was my home for nearly my whole life. This is the capital of the Fire Nation. Now listen to my tale. Then you will understand my goals. Itachi then looked at her stunned and amazed. Late in the day, Naruto was walking home. His new forehead protector was proudly atop his head. He had decided to go with a custom-made one, reserved mostly for clan heads or those going into a specific field of the ninja arts. The black cloth had a gold edging, while on both sides of the plate were the symbols for the Uzumaki clan, created by Naruto himself. It consisted of the symbols for the Fire Nation, Water Tribe, Air Nomads and Earth Kingdom, all together in one circle, while behind it was a faded yin-yang symbol. As he walked down the seemingly empty street, he stopped. His fine-tuned senses from years of Anko's training caused him to be hyper-aware of his surroundings. He could tell that someone was watching him. Looking up at a nearby building, he saw the edge of a cloak fleeing the area. Narrowing his eyes, he continued on his way. This is getting really old. Moving through the rooftops in a blur of pure speed, the cloaked figure's hood wavered slightly, revealing none other than Halibal herself. A small smile of pride was unmistakable. As she cleared the outer wall with ease, she landed softly on the ground. Stopping for only a moment, she said to herself, "I'm so proud, my son." With that, she vanished in a blur. Her destination, a small trade town, for the next stage of her plan: to return to the Leaf Village and rejoin her son. As the sun was rising on a new day, many ninja were already awake, while most of the new genin were training with the clans, in preparation for their coming teams and placement, while others were foolishly wasting the week celebrating. Naruto was busy honing his bending arts. In his hidden training field, Naruto was swiftly going through his techniques. Each move was swift and precise. While he didn't bend the elements, he still went through the movements. As he was near the end of his movements, he leapt far out of the center of the field. For where he was standing, a massive boulder slammed into the ground. As he landed, he took on a fighting stance. No shock was on his face as he met face to face with his attacker. Standing at the edge of the field was a young man a mere year older than Naruto. With black hair in a bowl cut, his large round eyes were adorned with two massive eyebrows, while he was dressed in a dark green jumpsuit, made from a material that looked like spandex. Large orange leg warmers covered each of his shins, while large iron bracers easily 30 pounds each were on the young man's forearms. The young man's build was that of an armature bodybuilder. This was Rock Lee, one of the strongest genin of the Leaf Village. Yet the irony was that he was the dead last of last year's graduating class. Yet what nobody knew was that he was a master earthbender, stronger than Naruto himself. With an over-enthusiastic voice, Rock Lee said out loudly, "Ah, my eternal rival, I have come to challenge you once again. For today I shall defeat you." With a mix of depression and embarrassment, Naruto said with a whisper, "What the hell was I thinking, teaching him earthbending?" Before a higher being could answer his question, fist-sized rocks rained down upon him. Stomping on the ground caused a wall of earth to rise up in front of him, shielding him from the attack. Not letting him gain an opening, he hopped slightly into the air. As he hit the ground, a dove into the earth as if it was water itself. Rock Lee took on a fighting stance. His eyes closed as he was clearly in deep thought. Any person looking would think he was meditating standing up. Yet the truth was far more amazing. For her was seeing through the earth itself. Any little vibration echoed through the ground, forming a flawless image in his mind. For a moment everything seemed to be at peace, until without warning Naruto shot out of the earth behind him, fist raised ready to strike. Spinning on his left heels, Lee did a roundhouse kick with his right leg. With it came a boulder heading through the air towards Naruto. Spinning in midair, Naruto struck the boulder, causing it to shatter. Not losing any momentum, he then held his arms out wide. Spinning in the air, he drew the earth around himself, until an armor of rock coated his entire body. With a hard thud, Naruto landed on his feet, the rock armor giving him the appearance of a golem. Raising his fists up, he then said calmly, "Let's do this." Without any hesitation, the two charged. What followed was a practiced show of raw taijutsu skill, where one attacked, the other evaded or blocked. Their movements, though restrained, were swift and precise. Yet there was one clear fact: Lee was winning this battle, for every one of his blows chipped away Naruto's armor. Nearly 10 minutes passed before Lee dealt his final blow. One solid strike to Naruto's chest sent the boy clear across the field. His rock armor shattered into dust. As he hit a large oak, he left a massive dent in the wood. As he coughed hard, Naruto grunted. Looking up at a proud Lee, he sighed and said, "Okay, you win, happy now?" With great enthusiasm, Lee said with pride, Yes, the flames of youth shine in you, my eternal rival. You have helped me become stronger than I ever thought possible. Prying himself out of the tree, Naruto said to himself. Does anybody else have to deal with this shit? Looking around the field, he sighed at the destruction. Looking at Lee, he called out loudly. You know you're helping me fix all this, right, Lee? With wide eyes, Lee's reply was rival in volume only by its enthusiasm. Of course, my eternal rival. Only a truly unyouthful person would dare leave such a place in such a sorry state. With a sigh, Naruto ignored him and said to himself. What kind of sensei do you have? Not long after, the two young boys were sitting outside a small stand. Both were having a calm drink of the stand's specialty. While Naruto himself was adjusting his new headband. Seeing the new headband caused Lee's eyes to become saucers. As he said with the same great enthusiasm he was infamous for. Ah, Naruto, I see you finally passed the academy. Tell me, what ranking did you get? Looking down ashamed, Naruto's reply was too low to understand. Curious, Lee said, concerned. I'm sorry, Naruto, I didn't make that out. What rank were you? Not meaning to, Naruto blurted out for many in the area to hear. I got Rookie of the Year, alright. There, you happy now? Lee was genuinely confused as he asked his friend, concerned. I don't understand, Naruto. Isn't that a good thing? Taking a long drink from his glass, Naruto looked straight ahead. No, not really, Lee. I mean, now everyone who takes those rankings as gospel won't hold any punches back. They know I'm tough. But look at you, Lee. Dead last, and thanks to your ace in the hole you could probably kick your year's rookie's ass. It's not the rookie you watch out for. It's the dead last. Heck, some people say that the fourth was dead last, and look at him. Being rookie is just one big pain in the ass. It was the memories of Anko's reaction returned to his mind, while phantom pains caused him to say, literally. Curious, Lee asked him calmly for a change. Who do you think you'll get for a sensei? With a serene grin, Naruto replied, amused. Well, all depends. Lord knows Anko is chomping at the bit to be my sensei. I mean, hell, we do make one hell of a team. But there are others I've met who are just as good in my book. There's Kurenai, she trained Anko and did a damn good job. As long as they're tough and don't pull punches, I'll deal with anyone they give me. It's my team I'm worried about. Who knows, it could be an emo or fangirl. The two then had a good laugh at the thought of such teammates. In the Hokage Tower, the aged leader sat calmly at his desk. Before him was one of the most feared ninja in the elemental lands. A former member of the Fire Lord's personal guard, he was considered a demon to all who faced him in battle. The man stood at a monstrous 7 feet tall, with black hair in 9 long spikes. A small bell was at the tip of each one. His face had a long scar running down the right side of his face, while his body was nothing but raw muscle. He was dressed in black robes with a white hiyori. Printed on the back was the kanji for 11. At his waist was a long katana. The blade was badly chipped and beat up, yet it was still clear it could carve through anything in its path. This was Kenpachi Midarashi Zaraki, the only man to defeat the 4th Hokage with only his skills with a sword. All across the elemental nations he was known by 2 titles. The Demon of the Hidden Leaf, as well as the Immortal. For while he had suffered many death blows over his life, he had simply shrugged them off and kept fighting. While his chakra was said to rival that of a tailed demon, he is said to have lost only once. With a sadistic grin, the towering giant looked at the Hokage and asked, All right, old man, I came. So what do you want? Looking at the towering giant, the 3rd Hokage ignored the blatant disregard for authority. Partially because the giant could kill him in a single blow. Holding his pipe up, the aged leader lit the tobacco with fire nature chakra alone. A feat that in his youth was simple, now was beginning to tire him out. As he took a long drag of the tobacco, he mentally prepared himself for the man's reaction for what he was about to ask. Looking the giant in the eyes, the Hokage ignored the mild discomfort of having to nearly stare at the ceiling to do so. A student has recently graduated the academy. A genin of such raw potential and power that I feel that only you can train him. Silence reigned over the room, as one could seemingly hear a pin drop down the hall. While Kenpachi simply stared at the old man blankly. As the silence became all-consuming, something happened that caused the old man to feel fear for the first time in decades. Kenpachi Zaraki laughed hard and deep. The windows themselves seemed to shake in response to his power. 5 full minutes passed before he came close to stopping. Looking at the old man, Kenpachi asked, clearly amused. Oh, really now? A meager genin worthy to train under me. Tell me, old man, why should I even bother? When in the past I've had to fix your mistakes. The last comment was like a knife in the old man's heart, for it dealt with the greatest failure of the old man's life. The fall of his greatest student. who Kenpachi hunted down and killed, casting his remains into the Razor Valley. Stealing his eyes, the third reached into his desk. Drawing a folder out, he then tossed it on his desk. Simple really. For the past 7 years your dear granddaughter has personally trained him, while he has a bloodline that could very well rival the Rinnegan. Intrigued, he then picked up the folder. Skimming through it, he memorized every page, until he stopped on the final page, where his eyes widened on one single line, on a copy of his birth certificate. Name Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, parents mother Halibal Namikaze, father unknown. With a knowing grin the third said, amused, "Oh, did I fail to mention his mother is the only person to defeat you in a straight-out sword fight?" Looking at the third, he made a grin that would scare the devil himself. For a moment the third was regretting his decision, when Kenpachi said with a chuckle, "Oh, I'll train the runt. But just so we're clear, I do it my way. No interference, or I may just accidentally have my sword slip." Not waiting for his reply, Kenpachi began to walk out of the office. Concerned, the third asked him, "Where are you going?" Looking over his shoulder, Kenpachi's reply was a sadistic, "It's time to pay my dear grandchild a visit." With that he walked out of the room, leaving behind a concerned Hokage to worry if his plan may have been a bad idea. Wow, I honestly didn't think someone would figure out what the weapons are. Though said person did fail to guess the Star Wars line. The person asked several good honest questions that I will answer right now. First off, no, Naruto won't have one of the swords from Bleach. I'm trying to make a powerful, not godlike Naruto. Also, Naruto is more of a waterbender, due in large parts thanks to his parents. Hint hint. Now the first part of the FIC will be mostly a flashback, to reveal a little bit about Halibal's and Kenpachi's intense past. In the streets of the Hidden Leaf Village, many were all but leaping out of the way, as the most feared man in all the Land of Fire walked down the street. A crazed, almost insane grin was on his face, while memories from years ago floated to the surface of his mind, of the one person to ever defeat him in a battle. How on that day nearly 20 years ago he knew defeat for the first and only time. 20 years ago, Land of Fire, Gongoda Plains. For nearly 600 years the plains of Gongoda have known countless battles, though the nations that fought change. The reasons were always the same: power. Yet today the once pristine fields famous for their flowers and herbs was a barren wasteland, scarred from a battle between titans. The earth was cracked and charred from raw chakra alone, while massive boulders that had withstood armies now lay sliced in half. At the heart of the destruction and carnage, high above the ground, the two clashing gods clashed. Sailing through the air, the two's blades clashed. Kenpachi was nearly identical to his future self, save the scar that would one day mark his face, while his black robes were tattered and close to rags. The giant had an ecstatic look on his face, as he laughed in raw joy, having finally found a worthy foe. With her trademark cleaver in her right hand, Halibal met her enemy head-on. Her outfit clearly that of an Anbu Black Ops agent, modified to suit her needs. Her clothes were covered in slash marks, while shallow cuts riddled her body. Her eyes were cold and one could swear were like staring into a frozen abyss. As the two blades clashed, sparks rained down from the sky, creating an almost beautiful display. As the two fought for supremacy, Halibal saw an opening. Lasting only an instant, it was enough for her. Channeling chakra to her legs, she twisted in midair. Her foot found its mark on the side of Kenpachi's head, sending the giant crashing into the ground, creating a crater nearly 20 feet wide. Yet where her foot met his face, a string of seals appeared. The mark of the famous flying thunder god jutsu, a mark commonly known as the mark of death in many hidden villages. Swiftly recovering, Kenpachi stood waiting for her to fall onto his blade. Yet what happened next would go down in history, sealing Halibal's place in history. Fixing her gaze upon her foe, she threw her blade at him. The sheer force behind the throw caused it to nearly break the sound barrier. Sword in hand, Kenpachi swung his sword at the mission. As the two connected, something happened that had never happened in the crazed warrior's entire life. The edge of his sword cracked and shattered, turning his once prized weapon, forged by the greatest swordsmith in all the elemental nations, into a jagged, chipped monstrosity. While Halibal's weapon was barely deflected as it passed Kenpachi, it sliced into his face, from the top of his hairline to his chin. The wound would forever leave a scar for the rest of the man's life, while the sword's impact caused an even greater crater to form, causing Kenpachi to lose his balance for just one lone second. Yet that second was all Halibal needed. Regaining his balance, Kenpachi looked to find his foe vanished. It was then from the corner of his eye he saw the unmistakable glow caused by the flying thunder god jutsu. Before he could even register when she had marked him, her cold voice seemed to be whispered behind him.
Twin Great Ball Rasengan. The last thing the giant felt was 2 spheres of pure chakra dig into his back, followed by a twisting thrust. The sheer force caused him to be sent clear across the plains, impacting the cliff that bordered the eastern edge of the plains. The last thing he saw was a rockslide hailing down upon him.
Pain was no stranger to Kenpachi. From the age of 5 he was trained to simply ignore pain altogether.
His father's words of, "Pain is weakness leaving the body," were never far from his mind.
Thus, when the pain he felt waking up was nearly too great for himself, he knew that his body was in bad shape. What he couldn't understand was why he was alive. Cracking an eye open, he saw the glow of a campfire. A large boar was roasting over it, his blade sticking out of the ground next to his head. Tied to the hilt of the blade was a small scroll. Reaching up, he pulled the scroll down. It took the giant nearly 3 full minutes to open the scroll. When he did, he couldn't help but laugh through the pain at what was written. A single line, plain and simple. "Next time follow my orders, Kenpachi." The animals that had come to prey on the weakened man were driven off, as his laugh drove fear into all the beasts of the forest. Present day that had been that day he had known defeat for the only time. No matter how many times he had challenged her after that day, she always outright refused, never giving him a reason beyond a simple, "Why do you fight?" Her death had been one of the hardest blows he had ever been dealt, having lost someone he truly respected, while her brother Minato, in his opinion, was a spoiled brat, having been trained by a fool. How the brat made Hokage he would never know. Seeing his goal in sight, the giant made his way up the stairs towards his target, the stairs straining upon his raw size. Reaching his intended floor, he looked at the doors. Finding the right apartment, he knocked on the door in a rare show of manners. From beyond the door came the clear voice of an annoyed Anko. "If that's you, Ebisu, I'm kicking your ass." The door then flew open to see an annoyed Anko, a dango stick in her mouth like a toothpick. Time seemed to stop between the two. While Anko looked on, stunned Kenpachi was clearly amused. When the tension could clear be cut with a knife, Anko sailed through the air. With a massive grin, she wrapped her arms around the giant's neck. "Grandpa." Chuckling, Kenpachi hugged her back and said, amused, "Hey there, runt-raising hell, I see. How you been?" At the trade town of Tanzaku, Iroh was in the locally famous pub known as the Howling Inn. With trained eyes he scanned the crowd for his dear goddaughter. Having received her note, he had wasted no time coming to the place stated in the letter. Every time the door opened, his eyes were instantly upon whoever entered, taking in every last feature. Yet to his growing disappointment, none of them were her. He was now on to his 3rd cup of tea when the waitress walked up. So focused on the door, the old warrior barely noticed her place ajar on the table. Looking at it, his eyes widened as it was identical to the one the note he received was in. Looking up at the waitress, his eyes widened, as the first thing he noticed was the woman's generous figure. While the simple outfit did well to it still drew the eyes of many in the room. Next her saw her hair. While spiky, it was a dull brown. Yet a little chakra to his eyes let him see the golden blonde roots, revealing hair dye hiding her true hair color. Then he finally saw her eyes. Twin neon orbs stared back at him. Eyes he never thought he would see again. Her eyes locked on his for only a moment, only to move to the jar. She then simply walked away, to serve another table. Paying for his drinks, Iroh left the inn. Jar in hand, he made his way to his hotel room. Locking the door, he then swiftly cast several privacy jutsu. In a matter of seconds, he tore open the jar to find a small scroll stuffed inside. Taking it out, he then swiftly opened the scroll. The very first thing he saw was an intricate summoning array, used mostly by Anbu Black Ops to smuggle troops past enemy lines. One agent would go through the detection seals, then use the array to bring as many as a dozen agents undetected. His years of experience as the founder of the Anbu Black Ops told him the array was for one specific person. At the end of the scroll was a small note, the handwriting clearly that of his goddaughter. "Tonight midnight to 5 past midnight." That told him all he needed to know. The array would only work for 5 minutes, after that it would be useless. Sitting on the side of his bed, Iroh sighed and said to himself, "My dear, what could warrant such measures?" 5 long grueling hours Iroh waited in his hotel room, the summoning scroll resting on the floor ready to be used. The entire 5 hours his eyes never left the scroll. The sun had long since set when the nearby clock chimed midnight. In a blur of rare speed, Iroh was already sending chakra into the array. As the seal glowed blue, a blast of smoke filled the air. Stepping back on reflex, he waited for the smoke to clear. When the smoke finally cleared, Hannibal was kneeling on her right knee, Her outfit the same white uniform she was famous for. With a downcast look she said humbly, "Hello Godfather, it has been too long, thanks for watching. Also remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video."